That is,
Village so capital V,
yeah,
capital P, Village Public, all one. There are no spaces in this. Village Public, exclamation point 2019. I can't believe you made me talk over that siren.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Okay. 5:30, so I will make a motion to call the meeting to order. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
do we want to give Bob a few minutes?
I'm sorry?
Do we want to give Bob a few minutes?
Yeah, we will. I mean, I think what I want to discuss with Molly is Dorothea's concerns, which I'm sure he will be aware of.
Okay, doing the referral over to Monroe County Planning for the code update and the comprehensive plan, I need a hearing date. In the documents that we've been provided on our schedule, it's showing, I believe, the 3rd through the 17th for public hearings. I need an actual start public hearing. We have 2 meetings in September, the 10th and the 24th, neither of the dates that are.
Which I'm gonna interrupt you for 1 second. So Jeff called me today, talking about that, and he asked if there was any reason why we couldn't just go with those days, and I don't see a reason why we can't. So
Okay.
Just because, I need a definitive date for Monroe County. So if we can say the public hearing will start on September 10th, and if you need to do a continuance, you can do it right through to the 24th. I think that puts us still in line for all the adoption things.
Yeah.
So
his thought was to just open the public hearing on the 10th, and then you can, continue that, and you have the deadline for the planning board decision is I believe the 15th. So you'll have their response, and then you can close the public hearing and take action on the 24th.
Can we pause for a minute? I just want to pull up the schedule and just kind of look at this in relation to the schedule.
oh, that's fine.
Thanks. I just need like 45 seconds.
Take it. The only reason this popped up is I'm getting all the documents ready to refer to
Yes, and
Monroe
we've got to
County.
send it with the date on it, right?
And I went to go fill in the hearing date, and I went, ew.
Yeah. So it's good that we were able to take care of that. And thank you. Did you see from the email
Village
that
Public.
the comp plan draft review as a possibility for tonight, and then Bob didn't pick up on it, and that's why
No, that's fine.
there was that little snafu there.
Okay.
Okay, but we are ready to talk about it
Okay.
because we do want to hear, so that we need you as the conduit, I think, to connect these two parts that have been
Yes.
happening simultaneously.
Yep.
So that we can now begin to bring them together, because I understand that we need to vote on the comp plan,
Yes. So you'll be.
so that that's the basis for everything that subsequently will happen with the code.
Yes. Yep. The so even though you're considering them both for seeker purposes together, you'll ultimately take an action on the comprehensive plan as a resolution and then passing the local law for the code.
Can you remind me again? So the public hearing I had that as 9/3. So we're not doing that on 9/3. We're doing that
The 10th and the 24th.
10th to the 24th. Got it.
Yeah, because those we actually have meetings scheduled for September 4th.
Okay, so then the final plan and the final code happens on the 24th.
Yes.
Oof.
Yeah, because we had, I believe we had made sure just in case the moratorium went to the 15th of October.
Yeah.
Right.
But with the language that once you take action on the plan and the code, then it'll just cease the moratorium.
Okay. So this is a question for everybody else. So we, if all goes well, would wrap up on the 24th of September, which would be terrific. Our planning board has repeatedly asked us for more time. We have till the 15th of October. Do we want to give them another week? Do we want to push it a little bit?
I would say no, because that is the way that the local waterfront consistency review law is written. So I wouldn't, I mean, that is law, it is code, I wouldn't defer.
That they get 60 days, not, okay.
Yes. And I think that their attorney answered that question,
Yes, sure.
and said that no, indeed, they felt that they could complete it within the 60 days, and she felt it was required and they needed to do so. And
Yes,
it would not get in the way of seeker.
correct, that it was an element, that seeker did not need to be completed ahead of time,
Ah.
it's an element of seeker
Right.
essentially.
Okay, so when would seeker need to be completed?
So that's something, there's no reason why you can't, start your consideration. You know, we've completed the part one, of that, because that does go along with the referral to Monroe County. We did, obviously include that for the planning board's, the planning board's benefit in their review. Ultimately, you can, you know, at the public hearing, open that public hearing, go through the motions if you'd like, but you don't need to make a determination until you're ready to
Okay.
take action. But again, I mean, this is all, obviously I would defer to Jeff over me on that, but he seemed to see no reason why that wasn't something that you could continue to do.
We could continue to do beyond final plan and final code adoption?
No,
Yeah.
no, seeker needs to be completed.
Completed.
Yes, yeah, but ultimately the way, that we had kind of been talking about this because, you know, we wanted to have an understanding from Department of State, and from NICOM, what the role of this local waterfront consistency review played with seeker. Ultimately, because the planning board action isn't a, binding
Right.
action. Essentially what this is, you know, if you go through the long form, and there's all those questions about, is there a locally adapted, you know, waterfront plan? Is this consistent with that? I mean, their review is essentially a deep dive in that element of seeker.
Right.
So you can utilize their determination to sort of inform your decision in that regard as well.
Okay, so just to be clear, the LWRP needs to be completed within 60 days.
The LWC, yep,
The LWC,
yes.
I'm sorry, needs to be completed within 60 days.
Mhm.
And that's already started, that clock has started ticking.
Correct.
And that started on the 22nd of July,
I believe that started the 16th.
16th.
Yes, that.
Yeah, 16th, I've got that. So LWC completed within 60 days. Seeker needs to be completed before the adoption of the code.
Correct.
Okay, so then the question is, do we want to allow more time for seeker than September 24th?
I don't see a reason why we would need to do that because it's type 2. And so it's pretty cut, I think it's type 2, isn't it?
It is a type 1.
Yes.
Okay, it is a type 1.
Yes, so you will do the long EIS.
So we would do the long form,
Mhm.
and we want to do that. There isn't any reason why we couldn't complete it before September.
No, that's what I'm saying, is you can, you know, go through that, that process, and discuss that sort of at the, first, if you wanna open the public hearing, I mean, that can be a part of your discussion then. It's really up to you. You know, obviously the big thing is that you make your determination before you take
Sure.
action. And because you're not doing, you know, an EIS in this instance is really not necessary. So there's no required public comment period or anything like that, for the seeker,
Okay.
element. It's just sort of something that needs to be completed.
Okay, I'm merely expressing this as the rep to the Planning and Zoning Board, and this is what I've heard. So we have a member of the Planning and Zoning Board here in Justin. Do you have anything you want to add on your own team's challenges to meet the seeker completion by the dates that we've proposed
Sure.
or
So
committed to?
just first to clarify, it sounds like the 24th is the last day for everything, and seeker has to be completed before that date or on that date, just before the code is adopted.
Correct, yes, correct. Yeah, your determination needs to be made.
I believe that based on what the board was concerned about in the meeting last night, that they thought we actually had less time than we do to provide input. So if we're not formally including seeker until, we need a date for that, right? That date
Well,
is not done.
so your role doesn't necessarily impact seeker. There's no, the planning board, is it, an interested agency, but you're not an involved agency.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes.
I thought we were an involved agency, but
No, just an interested agency. So, in this case, your review through the LWC is essentially providing input to the board and helping them to make their determination as part of seeker. So the planning board's deadline, I believe is the 15th, is the 60 days, in September, is the 60 days past this, when we initiated that referral and all the materials got to the planning board. So that you would make your motion, your determination, that would then get forwarded on to you, and then you have the opportunity in your meeting to obviously go through that, respond to that, and include that as part of your determination.
By September 15th, you said? That's the
LWC.
The LWC, yes.
For LWC.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Would you be able to give me any notes about how an interested agency is different than an involved agency? I don't know your names.
So, an involved agency is again, Jeff is better to answer this than me, but from my understanding of seeker, an involved agency is one that has a binding decision on this effect, to this effect. And the way that it's a good parallel is the county referral. So you refer the plan and the code to the county. The county gives you either a recommendation to adopt or not. And it would require, say in this case, the county said, nope, you know what, we don't think this is good, and we don't want you to adopt this. For you to go against that advice would take a supermajority vote. It'd be the same situation in my conversations with Jeff from that standpoint. So the county has no bearing on the decision when it comes to seeker, but they're certainly interested in the action.
But the planning board's role in reviewing the CAP doesn't make it an interested agency.
Involved.
Doesn't make it involved.
Yeah, it doesn't make it involved.
Correct.
Thank you. Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Some questions about dates. So 60 days from July 16th is Saturday, September 14th.
Correct.
Not the 15th.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, so we've got to get that in there right. So they have to come back with a completed LWC. Is it on or before the 60 days?
Before the 60 days.
Okay, so it's really got to be by Friday, September 13th.
Correct.
Okay. Everybody clear on that?
We set up 2 public hearing dates,
I can't remember, can we?
September,
Well, you still need to make that motion.
yeah, we have to make the motion,
What are the dates?
September the
10th. The
Yeah.
10th and the
10th.
24th. When your regular scheduled meetings are in September.
Okay, because the third I'm gonna be away, so.
3rd, yeah, 10th and 24th.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and just the clarification again. I mean, so the interested versus involved. Again, the involved agency is one that would takes a direct action. So your action as the village board is what implements and allows the plan and the code to take effect. Your action is a recommendation to that end.
Okay.
So.
And it's okay for us to start the public hearing before they may have completed the LWC.
Yeah, I mean, the public hearing, you know, it's an opportunity to make sure that, you know, I mean, you could hold 7, you don't need to, but, you know, you could.
And we can also take input all the way up to the time
Correct.
we adopt it. I mean,
Right.
that's the whole intent of this
Mhm.
long process, is to ensure that we can amend and make changes and meaningfully take the advice of the planning board where appropriate and
Correct.
alter the document.
Mhm.
Okay, so, since Molly is here, and we have a limited amount of time, she's going to review with us where the comprehensive plan committee is with their work.
Sure.
Kind of obvious, but
Yeah.
we'll state it for the record.
So, sure. So the edits to the plan, it is in a different format. There, I mean, that's first the simplest change. We did change the format of that because we got some feedback that it was a little bit too modern looking for what the village was trying to present. So we took a stab at that. Hopefully it's a little closer. It's a little simpler. We incorporated the edits, that we went through with the,
This isn't the latest one, because I have another one that's like this, right?
no, that's it's,
Is it this
yes,
one or
that,
is it?
no, that's it.
This is the
Correct.
correct one?
Yes,
Okay.
that is the most
So
current.
the other one I should discard?
Yes, correct.
And, have we selected a photograph for the cover yet, or?
No, not yet. And so that I did send an email to Tom and Brooke to this effect, because the only thing, because of the turnaround to get this document to you to take those actions, I believe it was last Friday. The only edits that we have not made to that document are the changes of photos. Brooke was nice enough to go through and take notes page by page of what she thought would be good photos to replace, because obviously there's been some discussion over what would be better, for each page. So that's the only thing, and it's not, the reason why I didn't do that is it's time consuming and it's not content.
Right.
So, that is really the only element that's remaining in terms of feedback from the steering committee. Significant changes include the addition of the green space elements that were prepared by the committee. There was a number, a written summary. I did not edit. I took it as is from the committee. And then they had some maps and then graphics to supplement that they provided.
I'm sorry, Molly, I'm
yeah.
having trouble finding this document. Who sent this and when, the most recent comp plan?
I did, and I sent it, I believe, on Thursday.
Thursday of
It would,
last week.
yes, it would be
Maybe
the
the week
11th.
before.
Sorry, the week before. It would be the
I
11th.
got it from my head too.
I believe the 11th.
I've gone with the 12th, July 12th.
Then
My document is that it's combined with the other, with the code.
Correct.
Do you have it right there? Could you just forward it to me?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks. It groups the emails and you can't find them.
Yeah.
So let me can I drop it?
So it's the updated code email
We'll do
one
it
too,
in
is
front
that
of
the one
you.
we're looking at?
The plan was sent previously, and then we followed
can.
up with the,
Gotcha.
followed up
Okay,
with the code.
then another way. Yep, got it all.
And then, so then the second significant change, I would say, to the document, there was markup in the PDF that I was given from the steering committee to remove the graphics related to 35 Monroe. 75 Monroe,
You knew what you meant.
a lot of addresses in that country. So to remove the graphics associated with that, they felt that the comment, I believe, in the PDF was to the effect that they weren't quite sure and comfortable yet with providing such a concrete recommendation for that area, and they were wondering if maybe it made more sense to follow up with that as an amendment. Now, that being said, it's now formally in your hands. If you wanted to still include the elements of that or change them in any way as they were in previous versions, we can add them back in, we can tweak them, we can do whatever. But the rest was mostly clarifications, and then the public input summary document, I believe, was also sent to you, and that includes the input that we received through the open house as part of that process.
Not going into the individual things tonight, but I've taken, because we've had such beautiful weather, I've taken a ton of photographs, and now I have a library that I think some of them could plug in here quite nicely.
Sure,
Yeah.
yeah.
Speaking of library, I wouldn't have included the library as one of the,
Well, let's not, there's a whole bunch here that we can change.
Yeah, I
out, but
know,
We don't have to talk, that's
yeah,
it.
okay.
And like I said,
That's
Renee
enough,
did go through, Brooke went through and took note of changing the photos, so that's certainly something that, we can take care of it for the final version.
And did you get it?
I did, thank you.
And then the code pieces that were sent to you, I did create one full code PDF that could be forwarded and posted, but I also went through and was careful to use track changes so that you have PDFs of the actual line-by-line edits that were made to the previous code versions that you had. So
Thank you.
that hopefully will help target sort of the review, your next review, and what was changed.
That's another thing I missed. Maybe at the break you can just show me
Sure.
that. Or yeah, because that is something I know the planning and zoning board really wants to see is track changes,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to see it too. So,
So
okay, thank you.
do we have everything we need from, is the comp plan committee, steering committee, planning, that's not what they're called anymore, because we changed it to.
Well,
what-
they're an advisory.
Yes, they're an advisory
Right.
committee now.
Do we have to take a vote
Do
on
we
that?
have everything
or dissolve
that they
We already did.
want us to
We
have
We already
incorporated
did.
in this, the one that you sent on the 11th?
To the best of my knowledge, yes. I mean, that's everything that I received from Tom. They also sent along some of the public comment elements, that were submitted to them, as part of that process, but there really wasn't any hard and fast changes, and I didn't want to make any public changes yet because, that wasn't anything that was formally approved or talked about between the steering committee. So, like I said, at this point, you have the opportunity to go through the plan in whole and then, take a look at all the public comment and stuff that's happened to this point and how that should or should not be incorporated.
Great.
Molly, may I, so you're saying the LWC, we were actually looking through the, full environmental, the FEAF, whatever, part 2. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, so the FEF part 2, is what they'll go through, next.
And that's what we're supposed to deliver as well, we're reviewing that document. Is that the expected deliverable, or is there?
No. Yeah, so the way, and again, I mean, these are better questions for Jeff, than me, but, the way that we have read and interpreted the, LWC is that there are specific criteria spelled out in that law, in the local law, that the planning board, goes through and is essentially, answers to. And then you take a vote and a recommendation, either recommend, your decision ultimately is yes, it's consistent, or no, it's not because yada, 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 whatever.
Okay, so, very naive question, where is the LWC? Is that in village law, New York State village law, or where do I find that?
So, yep, so that's in the end of the adopted LWRP.
Okay,
So, yep, so
Thank
that's
you.
at the end of that.
okay, so we'll start looking at that instead of the
Yes.
FEF part 2.
Yes, yeah, so the planning board, all of the planning board directives, it's very clear, there's, your review criteria, and it references specific plan, the LWP sections that you should be looking at to make sure it's consistent.
Okay, thank you very much.
Since you've worked closely on both of these documents,
Mm-hmm.
is it your opinion that this document, the comp plan committee, is in support of everything that we have done thus far?
Yes.
There are no glaring discrepancies or,
No, and I know that was one thing that I think the comp plan committee, I think, wanted a little bit more direction, an apples to apples sort of conversation on the uses and things in the comprehensive plan, but that's really not the place where that should go. I mean, largely the conversation in there, talks about mixing of uses, whether you would want residential uses or retail type uses or, low impact commercial uses. And then we went through with you building on the purpose statements and the use list and the dimensional standards and ultimately design standards for each of those districts. So I would say, yes, I mean, we've developed the code districts to be specifically tied to the future land use or character areas of the community management strategy. So they're very much linked to each other.
It's been a complicated project, and I think you've done a great job.
Thank
Molly. And I know we've been probably the client from hell,
No.
but we really.
We have been through tougher.
You have been an intelligent consultant.
Thank you.
You've been responsive, and I think the formatting of the document looks very strong now. And I haven't had the time, and I want to go through it line by line, but
Sure.
we will do that.
Great.
And,
Okay.
I think we're in a very, very good position. I don't think any of us were sure if we would ever get to this point. but we've made it, and,
Yes.
you know, obviously you've been a huge part of this, so thank you for doing a great job.
You're welcome, thank you. It's been, like I said, you know, a very unique process, but both John and I are, I mean, this is something that we hope to utilize to talk to our colleagues and others about, because this, while it is a challenging process, we really do think this is the best way to do it.
To do it simultaneously.
The doc, or
I mean,
maybe not, you know, I think the moratorium complicated this just a tad. But, yeah, I mean, ultimately, you know, there's a lot of efficiency to be said for having the opportunity to develop these character areas and talk about your future land use while we're also working in the code language, because we've been able to respond to the tweaks from the comprehensive plan committee immediately as part of the draft code process. And then they both just continue to evolve, and I think it puts you in, you know, department state repeatedly talks about how well-considered land use plans inform good land use decision making, and I think this is, you know, you have two very well-linked
I think the immediacy of having them happen at the same time, so often, by the time the municipality gets to the
Yeah, it's
code
too bad.
changes,
right.
they've forgotten or they have different priorities or the board has changed. So it's often not, you know, clearly reflects what the comp plan committee said.
Right.
I think in this case, I think it's gonna be a very, very close match.
Very much so, yeah.
Molly, is there any known gaps that you see in the comp plan today that we should focus on?
in the
It's
code or
100.
the comp plan?
In both,
Both.
yeah. I'm multitasking, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'm not, yeah, I'm doing this for.
No, I think, you know, one of the things that we benefited from in doing the open house, in how we displayed the information from the comp plan and the code side by side, we were able to really identify the deficiencies, like how we had brought, or at least strengthened the relationship between the LWRP boundary and the zoning code. That wasn't as necessarily strongly stated in the plan, so we made sure that that was, you know, addressed in this draft, and we spoke to that. You know, the comprehensive plan committee made some comments about wanting to make clear the difference between, you know, the village's local historic district as designated as the entirety of the village. So we're also able to make that clarification as part of the comp plan. You know, I really don't, I really don't see any,
Nothing jumps out.
no. You know, I thought it was, I know that that the comprehensive plan committee had talked about being hesitant to provide concrete direction or vision for 75 Monroe, but I think, which I wasn't planning on seeing them making their recommendations to take that out, so I thought that was maybe a little bit odd, but, you know.
Why did they want to take it out?
They just didn't feel, I think the comment was is that they didn't feel comfortable, given the way that with status of litigation and other things, that they just didn't feel that now was the appropriate time to provide all of that guidance, and that, you know, maybe it was a subsequent planning, you know, small area plan effort or something. You know, wasn't there, I don't know 100%.
This was in our July 2nd meeting.
Yes.
There either.
Yep.
That was all
And
right.
we had,
That was the right move.
Yeah.
yeah,
I think you're right.
Yeah.
So everything you feel is something that is sustainable, is able to be accomplished. There's nothing that is unrealistic in this comp plan. Okay.
Yeah, I think, you know, they did a good job of going through all the tasks and the policy areas, and, you know, there's a lot of ideas in there, obviously, but I think that, you know, the addition of, you'll see in the tables of the action items, there was conversation of identifying the tasks or actions that would require village board action. So, you know, there's certainly a number of things that committees could do, or volunteers could do, or, you know, various can do, but then they were clear to identify the items that were something that the village board would have to champion or at least weigh in on.
I have a question. I talked to the town supervisor earlier today, and we're both very close to adopting our active transportation plan. And I think that's significant because it addresses traffic and walkability, which are obviously key issues here in the village. And currently, after we did the last comp plan, I think we've had 4 or 5 amendments, a complete streets resolution, a traffic calming plan, or I don't even know, a strategic plan for a couple areas. It seems to me that it would, even if we adopt the active transportation plan, it would strengthen it if we, when we do the adoption of the comprehensive plan, if we include
Reference it.
the active transportation plan as part of that.
As
So-
an amendment, kind of just to the back?
well, either as an amendment or simply say that this active transportation plan is officially part of the village's comprehensive plan. Because it will certainly, as
Sure.
we go forward to implement and get grants, it will strengthen our position.
Definitely, and the active transportation plan and the local waterfront revitalization program are both referenced and included as part of the comprehensive plan, because obviously, you know, we don't want to be regurgitating the efforts and the content of either one of those documents, but they are, as you stated, you know, really supportive of that. So that would be a way to do that. And I know that I should say the other piece that is not quite completed with the comprehensive plan is the final linking, right? So the reference of the active transportation plan, reference to the complete streets policy, the reference to all these different things will, in the final version of the plan, it's just easier for us on the back end to have it all be, when we get to the final stages, to link all of that. So all of that will be in there, and it will be, you know, a way for people going through and to say, okay, well, you know, the comprehensive plan recommends to do actions related to the active transportation plan. Go ahead and click that link, and here, you know, it takes you right to the active transportation plan.
Renee, you've been involved in both the active transportation, and I think Bob has too, and in the comp plan, and in the code updates. Are there, I haven't read the active transportation plan. Are there contradictory items in there, or is it all in sync, or do we need to do a formal review to make sure that they're not
Of the active
contradictory?
transportation plan
Yeah.
before we adopt the comprehensive plan?
Yeah,
No, the comprehensive plan, I mean, there were a few things that were discussed, and correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, but the kind of idea that Elisa presented with the whole parking lot, taking that back as a park, which we decided to amend.
It's in here.
Right, but we're saying that's a recommendation, but it doesn't conflict with anything in the active transportation plan from what I can tell, that little piece of it. So there's nothing glaring to me. We just had a meeting right before I left, to go over our active transportation plan and any missing gaps, or gaps, I guess that's redundant. And I don't think anything that I read stood out to me as being in conflict.
I don't think there's any conflicts because early on in the comp plan process, we actually had a couple meetings where we updated them on the active transportation plan, both Renee and myself. And I think, you know, the board is very supportive. We said from the beginning that we anticipated we would adopt the active transportation plan as part of the comp plan, so the committee didn't have to go off in that direction, because
Right.
really that work
And
was
reinvent
already
the
done.
wheel. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and we were careful not to, you know, I think you'll find that a lot of the language in the comprehensive plan that relates to active transportation, multimodal streetscapes, those kinds of things are really more the vision level, policy level direction that you know is consistent with the active transportation plan, whereas the specific recommendations then are role of the active transportation plan. So I don't, you know, we tried to steer away from any specific streetscape things because of that.
I have one just point of clarification. I've been taking notes and I can't tell from what I just wrote. we need to vote on the comp plan as a resolution, then pass a local law for the code. Can those be done at the same time? Or do we need to do we've got the 10th and the 24th set aside for our hearings. Do we need to have the comp plan as a resolution before?
No.
Okay. So
Yeah,
I'm
you
wondering
can
what
do
our
it-
drop dead date is pass a resolution. for the
Yeah,
comp plan.
you can do them both in the same meeting. They just
Okay.
need to be, because they're two different pieces of legislation.
Okay.
So they'll just be done in succession, and I mean, because you'd be doing them at the same meeting, it doesn't really matter, but as a matter of, process, I would just do the comp plan first.
Okay. So that would mean the earliest we would do
I
that is
agree.
the 10th, and the latest we would do that is the 24th. Okay. So we need
Just
to review.
another thing to add to the timeline, for Dorothy and Dan, since you're keeping track of it. Our current sign code references existing names of zoning districts, and that will create gross confusion if we don't
Correct.
update, do a search and replace with the new zoning district designations.
So is that something your team's working on, or is that something we need to do on our side?
No, yeah, so the sign code wasn't a part of the
Okay.
code that we were
Right.
looking at, but what we do have, and I can send it to you again if need be, for the open house on the zoning map, we included a table that is essentially sort of that one-to-one comparison of what the district was and what we're proposing it now to be, so that should hopefully be helpful in just making that exactly that as
Right.
So who do we want to assign that task to? So it should get updated in the,
Well, I think we
Sign
have
code.
to ask the clerk, and I'm bringing it up now, because there's a dearth of personnel in the office, and I don't want to overwhelm Dorothea and have her
well,
quit in the middle of the
I
night.
can do a find and replace on a document.
Well, real quick, let's
If
go
you
back to schedule, because I need to send out the legal notices for all this as I'm looking at it by the 21st.
Of August.
Yes, so
Okay.
that means whatever the public is to review for me to post on the website, I really would like final docs before the 28th of August.
Okay, so let me capture a bunch of this. So you need to update on the code adoption update on the public hearing, and the public hearing is on 9/10.
Right,
So you need to update on the public hearing when?
I need to send to the paper the legal notice
Yep.
on 8/21,
Okay, latest 8/21.
latest 8/21. If I prefer the 14th, but we're really jumping here.
Okay,
And that
Because the
means-
sooner it hits the paper, the sooner people can come in and request a copy of
Okay.
everything.
and that's regarding the public hearing. Then you have to do another one on the code adoption on the 24th, for the
No, I'm gonna send
24th.
all the legal notices in on
Okay.
the 21st.
Yeah.
So if we're gonna do a local law for general code changes, I think we can go ahead and include the sign code. So you're
Okay.
gonna wanna have, whoever's gonna do it wants to have that done by
Okay,
that
so,
same time
so
frame.
really all the final documents have to be done by the 21st of,
I'd say to the
August?
28th, just because when someone, let's say when it hits the paper, someone wants a copy of it, I should be able to produce the local law.
okay.
So you want to have those up on our website on
Right,
20, by no later than the 28th?
correct.
Okay.
Okay, so
But that doesn't mean we can't make changes
Right.
after that date.
Right.
Yeah.
right, but there will be another sort of penultimate draft.
Right,
Correct.
right.
On
That's
the-
what
on the
I
28th.
wanted to make clear.
Okay.
Although we have that time frame, there is a point we want to have a good, solid docs by that
Okay,
point.
then the updated sign code would need to be a part of that document by the
I'm thinking I
28th.
can combine that with the local law for the
Sure.
general code updates that we're doing.
So
Okay.
you need three final-ish drafts.
Yeah,
The code, the comprehensive plan, the code, and the sign
sign code.
code.
Now, do you want to do the sign code, or you want me to do that? I'm happy to do it. It's just a search and replace.
I'm gonna ask a board member to do it.
Okay, I'll do it, it's fine.
I'm just.
Because it's just changing the name.
Just
of
a-
the
Just,
district.
it's
Search and
just
replace.
changing names,
Search
not
and
changing
replace.
it.
Doesn't change the spirit of the code.
It's just,
Thanks, Dan.
No problem.
I didn't want to do that. I'm glad you volunteered.
Like, super fast and,
so as long as everybody's good with
Okay.
that, and while we're doing that, you really should do the motion second, set the public hearing for September 10th. That way we have that done and
So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
And do we need to do a second one, the completion of that for the 24th? Do we need to make a motion
No,
for
because you're
that?
just continuation. You start, you don't anticipate a continuation, but you allow for a
Okay,
continuation.
so we don't need to
Right.
say that, okay.
No.
Okay, so really the deadline is the 28th.
So then if we're saying you need final documents, sorry to go over this again, by the
No, that's
28th,
okay.
you need to put them up online no later than the 28th.
Correct.
Of August, then we need to get, what, Molly, when do you all need our final, any changes as we're reviewing everything? So that, because really the final document will come from,
Yeah.
Well,
How much time do you realistically need, so it's not like the other time when you're probably staying up till 2 in the morning?
yeah.
I'm not sure because, you know, you're waiting for your input from the planning board.
Yeah.
And, you have the public hearing. I wouldn't change these documents any further until you hear that input at the public hearing.
So for your efficiency, it would be best to do it all, even if we come up and we have comments, we'll save it all and then you'll do it in one efficient operation.
Which is what we did with
Okay.
the comp plan with that hearing too. Okay, so really we have the documents other
But
than the
if that's the
signed.
case, then
the
my
sign.
life is golden, except for I just
Well-
need sign.
I'm about to make your life worse, I'm sorry. Is there another document that we need to create as trustees that is sort of the highlights of changes to the code? Because we're gonna, we're gonna have a public hearing, and we're gonna hand them 400 pages worth of documents, and that's impractical. So at some point, we should educate the public as to what's changing. What are some of the big things that are changing? And we could do that in a 6-slide PowerPoint deck. Is that the kind of thing we should do? You should do?
When you say from changes, you mean from the current code
Yeah.
to the new code? I think you could, honestly, and I can easily update those boards, based on because it's just a link to the PDF of the code and things. Honestly, I think if we just updated those boards that we had at the open house, those were very good summaries and highlights of essentially what is in the code and what is in your plan,
Okay.
and how they're tied. So I think, if that works for you, I don't see a reason why if you had posted those as a PDF, clean versions of those, like I said, I'll just link the newest version of the code to that.
I think that's a great
Yes.
idea, because I think those boards were, terrific. And it helps people who may not have the interest to read the entire document at a glance,
Yeah.
to at least familiarize themselves with what the issues are. Right.
So you're gonna get us a clean PDF of the boards, which essentially show the highlights. And when can you do that by? You set the date.
Yeah, so right now we're working. John and Katie and I are all in Grantland right now.
Yeah.
So we're booked till the end of this week, but we could get that to you, the first full week of August.
How about the third? We only need it on the 10th of September, so you've got time.
Right.
So why
But
don't
I'm
you
just
give
saying
yourself a
to
little cushion?
But I'm just saying to give, because there's no reason why, if we're not, I think the best plan is to take the documents as they are, move them forward to the public hearing. So you could post those online, and then, just post those boards as the summaries as well. And so, if we did that early August, I think that would be a good way for the public to have some time with it, take a look at it.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
I can post all this early on the website.
Yeah, so like I said, it's most of that is just an update of, linking to the most recent version of the code. So by August 9th, we can get that to you, and then you have that to be able to post.
the important story here is that the community put together the representatives on the comprehensive plan, put together the new vision, and we need to communicate that we've followed that and our code reflects what the community
Right.
decided was the new
Right.
vision. Okay.
Yep.
Versus just comparing it to our old code.
Right, yeah, it's gonna be, hard to make that comparison, like I said, I think, you know, the table, one of those boards will be the zoning map, and, that, you know, will show sort of what the districts were, what we're
Right.
proposing them to be.
Yeah.
But it is a little bit hard to make the hard and fast comparison. I think in general, it's, you know, mostly, you know, we really didn't change your dimensional requirements. I mean, we went through, especially with the residential districts, we essentially kept those consistent with what you have now. The use tables, we just updated to reflect more modern uses. We consolidated how we refer to some
Yep.
things, you know, we use different terminology, but for the most part, I mean, the intent of the districts as they're applied now, it's just further clarified.
I think the important thing is to convey the principles that inform the changes. And one is, like you said, to update the uses to uses that are relevant and current, to where the zoning districts are redrawn, they better reflect the character of what's on the ground. And the changes that we have made really are there to be more of a, you know, a hybrid form-based code, recognizing that it's the physical form of the village that contributes so much to our economic success, quality of life, and economic value.
Right.
I have a real quick clarification, something you said just triggered in my head, I'm sorry to interrupt. The zoning map, we are updating our zoning map?
Yes,
Okay, that needs to be part of that
right,
legal notice as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
correct.
Molly, you were going on other things that you saw changed in it. What else did you see off the
In the
top of your head?
plan?
Yeah, and in the code, frankly. Besides reorganizing it, making it more contemporary, what else?
Sure, let me pull up.
We took out conflicting statements. There were conflicting statements in the existing code.
Yep,
That's important.
let's see, so, okay, so I'm sorry, so you mean from from your current code in place to the new code?
Yeah.
So, big change, the sort of highlight is, sort of like Bob said, we clarified, the districts themselves to better reflect existing, development character or community character, and to reflect that of the recommendations of the comprehensive plan. We updated and essentially better refined your development standards or your design standards, to apply in a district-based manner rather than being more a broad brush general approach. And to that effect, we also brought the existing design standards that you had for the HPV into the zoning code, so they have the strength of applicability there as well.
Okay, so existing standards from HPV to the PZBA?
Well, to the zoning code.
Okay.
So that, you know,
Yeah.
so that they become a tool that it's not just an HPV tool, it's something that the planning board can look at if they need it for guidance, or if there's something in there that, you know, would help them in their review. Same thing for the village board, you know, as you're looking at special permits. We, better clarified the link between your, LWRP and the code itself, and the same with your, historic preservation law. That has been, because the village is in the unique position that you know, the entirety of the village is a historic district, for all intents and purposes, your zoning code is also your historic preservation tool. So we made those much more, linked. And then, let's see, we clarified review procedure, and gave, you know, a more concrete, flow of process.
We streamlined the special use permit
Yep.
process.
Yeah,
How so? Because it still resides with the planning board.
Right,
I'm
but
sorry, with
it's-
the trustees.
So it's still, rather than having an application sort of come in and originate with with the village board and then go to the planning board and, and have sort of these back and forth motions between boards, we've provided for a concurrent review process. So when something comes in, it automatically comes in and is viewed by both the HPB and the planning board with their respective purview. And then the action on the applications is essentially just one forward motion where it just makes those pit stops along the way. So the planning board essentially, they're looking at site plan, they make their decision on site plan, it moves forward, it goes, if it's special permit, it then goes to you, as the village board, and then, for the certificate of appropriateness, that's essentially the final stop for everything. So we made it a clear one-way process that doesn't, that reduces the potential for conflicting decisions, and it provides a better avenue for your input of all the various boards. I mean, your HPB has a lot of knowledge and influence in terms of the historic character, and that's something that's an important element to have as part of site plan, even though that might not necessarily be a direct action under the certificate
Okay,
of
so we go
appropriateness.
HPB to PZBA for the site plan review.
No, it's, so the HPB, right, is your final stop. So the HPB is sort of, the way we provided it, they have this umbrella ability to, when an application comes in, they can look at it and they can say, we care about this because of X, Y, and Z, planning board, maybe keep an eye on this, or we'd recommend this. Or if it's an application that they aren't concerned about, or they don't have an interest in, they can just say that.
Yeah.
And so what we've done is we've just provided an opportunity for that application to get all of that information up front, so that there's no surprises by boards later on down the road.
Okay. But it's a straight process, it's not a concurrent process necessarily, unless they don't have to review.
Correct.
So if they have to review, then it's one after the other. So it
Correct.
wouldn't be
The
concurrent. then.
decisions are one after the other.
Yeah.
We say, for example, an applicant wanted to initiate their site plan and certificate of appropriateness applications at the same time.
Yeah,
There's no reason that the planning board can't meet on that site plan and the HPV meet on the certificate of appropriateness at the same time. It just means that the ultimate decision is that HPV is, that approval on the site plan is contingent upon the HPV issuing that certificate of appropriateness.
right.
We have to wind up, because we have a meeting at executive
And
attorney.
so
client
we've got
session.
5 minutes left. Do we want to schedule some code review, or code or comp plan review meetings? Well, we have just a couple minutes, at least maybe one for next week.
Yes.
We have
So
an
this is
attorney
to-
client session?
The purpose is to review the comprehensive plan, and when do we want to discuss the PZBA input? Do we want to wait until they're all complete with their meetings and have all of that done, or are we going to do it piecemeal? We had talked about it before and thought piecemeal might be the way to go, but perhaps given what Molly has said, we want to wait until.
Yeah, I'm thinking now maybe we should tackle the comp plan. I think we can move through it fairly
Okay.
quickly.
Okay.
And why don't we just schedule one meeting and see how far we get in the
Okay,
first
great.
meeting? And do you want to do next Tuesday, since we don't have a board meeting on the 30th?
Okay, and the date of next Tuesday is July
30th.
30th.
Is that okay with everyone?
I have a meeting on the 30th, that night. What
You
time
have,
do
you have a meeting.
I have a meeting on the 30th.
What time, Renee?
For like 6 o'clock. I have
Oh,
to usually be
Okay,
back
do you want to
downtown.
try to do another night next week? Would that be
I
better?
could do the 31st if anyone else is available. I could do on Wednesday.
The only thing we'll miss is a porch party.
Oh, well, shoot.
That's okay.
And I can do the 1st as well.
I'm out of town on the 1st through the 4th.
So July 31st is in
Or,
play.
or how about Monday, the 29th?
I am still out of town.
You're out of
Yeah.
town.
Okay.
Let's go with the 31st, and we'll just go to the porch party late. And can we start at
What time's
5:30?
Yeah, what time, or could you guys meet a little early, like 5? So, cause what time's
Do
the
you
porch
work,
party?
Lily?
Yeah.
Not on Tuesday.
Not on Wednesday, I cannot, 5:30.
Oh, this is Wednesday.
This is Wednesday.
So Wednesday, 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock. That would work for you?
No, 5:30.
5:30 for Dan? Okay.
And the purpose of this meeting is only to talk about
Comp plan.
Comp
Give
plan
our-
review, yep.
okay.
And that's the 31st?
Correct.
That is the 31st at 5:30.
Okay.
Got it.
All right, everybody good with that?
Yeah.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Molly, for this.
Thanks, Mom.
And I'll, when I get back, I'll send you, just the updated, one email with everything in it, so that you can just have that for easy.
I can dig through it, I'll find it. It's okay. If it's like 5 seconds for you to do it.
That's fine, I'll just find one. It's all in a folder.
It's the track changes one I'm most interested in.
I
Okay.
have them directly, I can send it to you.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Actually, you're making a motion to go into executive session.
But Dan and I have to leave.
Right.
Right, so. we'll be
Actually,
finished.
I think we need your office, if we need the phone.
Okay, I want to get something out of there before, so I can
Yes.
open my tab.
So, can I have a motion to go to executive session, please?
Motion was seconded by me.
Motion to executive session.
Oh, I make a motion that we enter an attorney-client session, the purpose of which is to discuss an employee. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I'll
Good pledge?
Make a motion to call the meeting to order
I'll
first.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'd like to ask everybody to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. First item, I have just a statement, and Dorothea, I'll give you a printed copy for the minutes. Give that to Dorothea. I just want to give everybody an update on 75 Monroe. There's been some information put out recently that's confusing, and I want to clarify where we are and what's happening. The original Board of Trustees 2012 approval of the Westport Crossing project was a result of a hard-fought compromise that complied with village laws, worked to preserve our village's historic character, and provided some benefit to the community. On July 2nd, 2019, I and the majority of the village board voted in favor of a resolution reaffirming the approval this board granted to the 75 Monroe project. I did so because even though I disagreed with portions of the original decision, I believe that the process was followed and the approval was lawful. I also recognize the hard work the 2012 village board did during the original design review of the project and in imposing specific design parameters, including the canal commercial design requirement, to minimize the impacts to the village's historic character and on the aesthetic character of the Erie Canal viewshed, which is a National Historic Landmark. I have supported the Board of Trustees' efforts to defend the 2012 approvals while opposing Mark IV's efforts to change the project and ignore those specific amenities and community benefits that allowed the 2012 Village Board to grant the project special use permit. Recently, inaccurate statements about the history of this project may have created confusion. As mayor, it is my responsibility to set the record straight. The village and representatives from multiple boards met with Mark IV representatives dozens and dozens of times in an effort to resolve these matters through negotiation. Each time, Mark IV moved the goalposts with no interest in compromise. Their position remains that their desire to build without the canal commercial design concept, which was approved, and their altered design would result in massive box-like buildings lining the canal. A compromise is when each side gives a little to get to a resolution. Mark IV has not been interested in any compromise. By court order, the village board was required to hold a hearing to reconsider the issuance of the special permit originally granted in 2012. The court directed the board to hear further information from Pittsford Canalside Properties as well as the Friends of Pittsford Village, and then to make a decision based on all the prior and new information. The court required that the village board make a decision. Not making a decision would have violated the court's order. Second, while the court initially concluded that the 2012 board violated the open meetings law, the village board at the time was following the advice of its then special counsel, Carl Essler. The court has not come to a final conclusion on this matter. As the court indicated, the board's actions may have been substantively lawful. It was certainly reasonable for the board to rely on Mr. Essler's advice. The village's legal counsel has advised that individual village board members should refrain from discussion of these issues at the present time with either party in the litigation. Doing so jeopardizes the village's legal position and could result in additional liability and expense. To circumvent basic zoning requirements, the applicant for 75 Monroe has brought suit after suit, filing motion after motion against the village. No village board has commenced any of these lawsuits. However, as a municipality, the village is legally obligated to respond to every lawsuit regardless of merit. The July 2nd resolution does no more than affirm the decision the board made in 2012. The village board reaffirmed the exact resolution it previously adopted without a single change, and which Pittsford Canalside Properties has supported without a single request for any amendments. All village trustees have been fully informed of these facts during multiple meetings and conference calls with legal counsel. No trustee made any suggestions for an amended resolution or any alternate resolution. The village board wisely chose a legal strategy that protects the legal process of the village, the work of the other boards, and the physical and historic character of the village and our canal. Thank you. Okay. Any discussion?
No, it was a statement for the record? Is
Yes,
that correct?
yes,
Okay.
and I gave the clerk a copy of it.
Okay.
Okay, next item, we have a public hearing to consider a special permit for Rachel's in the former Starbucks location. Would you like to come forward?
I have the large board, but unfortunately the printer screwed up some colors a little bit, so I brought some handouts that I think more accurately depict the colors being
And you may
proposed.
turn it to face us because you're addressing the board.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Board, thank you for taking the time to see us tonight and talk about this project. My name is Mike Berger with Sutton Architecture, representing Rachel's Mediterranean for this project at 5 State Street. What we're looking to do is a level 2 alteration to convert an existing, what was an existing assembly space for Starbucks into Rachel's. The scope of work would be mostly colors and signage on the outside to bring a little bit of life back to the building, and then renovations on the inside, primarily just to provide the equipment that would be needed for the Rachel's operation. Not too dissimilar to what it was originally. Most of the major amenities and features are staying pretty much in place, just being changed over to, again, their equipment. The last time I was here presenting, there was a couple of questions that were raised. One of which was the where the exhausting would happen. In the back of the building, it actually is a lower portion of the roof. The intention would be to provide our exhausting out in that area so that the front of the building would actually screen the exhausting itself. So you would never see that from the street. So that would be the intention there. There was mention of additional grease trap that is included, and it is in the final set of drawings which I brought with me. And also mention of providing some sort of a planter box or some sort of deterrent to just direct parking and things like that, and that has also been included here. Back with some discussion with the building inspector, we'd be proposing a wooden structure that would be anchored into the ground and provided with some flower beds for decoration, while also providing some protection for vehicle movement and not being able to park in certain spots that we would deem not acceptable. So with that, I would open up for any questions.
Okay. Could you tell us a little bit more about the flower boxes? And the reason I ask is there's an anomaly. If you look at an aerial picture, there used to be a village green, and actually the front part of your parking lot is actually village property.
Mm-hmm.
So normally it would only be a site plan issue, but because of that anomaly, when they, in the 1920s, I believe, they reconfigured State Street and eliminated the village green, and so the right-of-way goes right through your parking lot. So
Okay.
technically, you need a separate approval to whatever improvements we make there. And I like to understand what you're doing, because I brought it to Steve's attention, because when Starbucks was there, we had a continual problem where cars were parking on the sidewalk
Mm-hmm.
and pedestrians were forced to walk in State Street, which you can understand is not a very safe thing to do most of the day. So it really is important that we have some barrier that will be durable 4 seasons of the year
Mm-hmm.
to ensure that we don't have cars on parking lot. That being said, and I'm only speaking for myself, I think it's a great use. I think it's exactly the type of use we want to see in the center of the village. I'm excited for you to open, but this is a practical problem that we really need to make sure that we solve.
Okay. In regards to the planter boxes, there were several discussions about several different options of how we would go about providing it. The original concept was a bollard, type of fixture, although they don't provide a whole lot of aesthetic improvements. Another suggestion was an actual vertical planter box. But the problem you're going to run into with anything that has any kind of height to it is you're never going to get that kind of DOT rating, kind of structurally sound, can hold up to a vehicle. We have done some where we've made that work, but there's no real, unless you put a Jersey rail up or something, you're not really going to get anything there. What we landed on was a wooden structure, pressure treated material that would be painted a color that is appealing to the village and approved by this board or anyone else who would have a voice on that. And that wooden structure would be anchored into the ground with, I know that in here, 4-inch embedded bolts, 1,000-pound shear strength at 24 inches on center. The idea being that you could drive a tank into that thing and it's not going to go anywhere.
I want to understand where, it's a little bit difficult to see in the
Mhm.
picture because it's
It's a little small.
not good. It's a little bit so you're envisioning this planter, when you're looking at the building, it's the upper things, the upper left-hand.
The idea would be to use it to provide, a
Right here.
kind of directional, by putting it on each end to kind of funnel traffic in so they know where to go to drive in. And then another one near the building to prevent people from parking along the side of the building where there's an exit door. That was the intention.
So it's the issue currently
Mhm.
is that cars can pass over the public access to the bakery, which is directly behind. They
Mhm.
have, which is required by our code, an access from the public sidewalk to their business.
Right.
And cars are currently able to pull over that sidewalk, which is
Mhm.
supposed to be for the just
So
pedestrian.
we'd be providing a planter box
It prevents that
in
from
the
happening.
corner here that would prevent a vehicle from being able to drive up and into
And
this
then
corner.
go out the driveway from the,
Correct. It would leave it only for a pedestrian walkway.
perfect. That's the concern.
Right. It would restrict the width to the point that a vehicle would not be able to pass,
Okay,
but it would still allow for pedestrian travel.
be able to go
In and
up
out.
and down.
Yeah.
And one thing that happened, unfortunately, and Starbucks did this illegally, but when they were granted their original site plan approval, and I don't think your drawing is quite to scale, because
No, that's not the
the
scale.
parking spaces aren't that big. There's more room behind them in reality, I think. But there is a walkway here that was part of the original site plan approval.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea was to give people, and especially handicapped people under ADA, an accessible route from the public sidewalk to the front door, understanding because of the limited parking available, many people will be crossing the street and coming from other places, so we need a safe route in there. So just wanted to.
Yeah, and that's being maintained. I know it's small on the paper, but it is, existing sidewalks and
Existing
everything is in
concrete
there, so.
sidewalk.
Yeah, the intention is that's to stay.
Yeah, they're gonna maintain it as the ADA space too. The
Yes.
far right parking.
Right, and that again would be part of the
Handicap.
original site plan approval for one handicap parking space per the New York State Building and Fire Prevention Code.
Correct. The other thing I wanna mention, in the original Starbucks site plan that was approved, there are planter boxes on the front that were never built on the original Starbucks, in the exact same locations that they were going to put them in. That was the site plan that was originally approved for this location.
Okay, well, new solution, we'll see how it works, right? Other questions from other board members? I assume you have and you submitted documentation on a trash agreement as we spoke of before with
Yes, the
Village.
trash agreement was taken care of.
Right,
Yes.
okay.
Is there a more complete application than with the one we got in the meeting
All I
packet?
have is, that's all I've
Okay.
received.
So that's forthcoming.
I have no other documents
This just went before the planning board.
last week.
Oh, did it?
Seating is the same?
But the number of seating is the same as it was previously, yes.
And they reduced it to 24 seats to accommodate closer to the parking requirement. And they were granted the parking variance in the last planning board meeting.
Did they need anything else, Steve, from the PCBA?
Pardon?
Did they need anything else from the PCBA?
Nope.
Just the parking areas?
Yes.
And could you tell us a little bit about your restaurant, just not because it's, we need it for the approval, but just because we're curious and we want to know what's your restaurant, when we should make a reservation?
Well, G here is representing Rachel's themselves. He can speak more to the
Okay.
business itself.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Good to see you again.
You too, thank you. Good to see you. Just a little bit about us, some of the positive stuff. We we have a successful track record. We have 7 locations in the Buffalo area. We have sponsorships with the Bills, the Sabres.
Mhm.
Our menu items are very healthy. It's got a wide variety of vegetarian, vegan, just a healthier option. Open kitchen concept, very clean. We do a lot of charitable work in the Buffalo area with Children's Hospital, Kids Cares. We do that annually. We do with the Arthritis Fund, and we're willing to do some charity with the village here. It's just a real good operation. It's been real good for us. We've had good growth. Brandy Guzda here who's going to be overseeing the operation in the Rochester area. We're also opening another one in Henrietta. I'm trying at the same time just to get that
Brand established
brand
in this market.
establishment in this new market, yeah. All our locations are closed on Sundays. Our operations are Monday through Saturday, 11 to 9. We got nice clean work. We hold ourselves to a higher standard when it comes to cleanliness and how we take care of our food, how we treat our customers and our staff. You can attest to that. We don't have a lot of turnover as far as staff goes. It's just been real good so far. So I feel like
What are your hours of operation and when's your peak business?
peak business is lunch. We do a lot of catering.
Okay.
We grew our company through catering.
Mhm.
Do a lot of catering to hospitals, doctors' offices. Again, going back to the healthier menu option. Our build outs are very, very modern. They're all designed nicely by Mike and myself, and we use real high end equipment. Nothing is like, we don't buy anything used. Everything's brand new. Our furniture is real high end. It's just a good, fun atmosphere to be at. I think we're a perfect fit for this village.
Typically, what time do your deliveries arrive? do you have a huge panel truck or a
Yeah, we
semi,
do.
or what do you use?
We have an agreement with US Foods that I had them print out for us, if you guys wanna take a look at it. An
Okay.
agreement that they will be there by 6 AM, and they'll have a drop key, which they'll have access to the location, drop off the food, turn the alarm back, and then take off, and then they're guaranteeing it with a signature by the
Okay.
vice president of the area.
How many employees typically on a shift?
For this location, we're looking at about four to five at the most at the peak time. I think we can handle it with the way our concept works.
Okay, and have you talked to your employees about potential places to park in the village? So
Absolutely.
they, okay.
Yeah, we have an agreement, sorry, we have an agreement with Sutherland for our staff to park. They gave us the opportunity to get the parking variance that we went last week for.
Uh-huh.
So we're allowed for parking for an agreement for a monthly payment.
To Sutherland Auto?
Sutherland Auto.
Oh, okay, great.
And we have that here if you would like, but
Yeah,
you
we
can take
would,
my
we
word
would
for
like to
it. You'd
have.
like to see that?
If you could submit a copy as part of your application, that would be very helpful.
Yeah.
Sure, you wanna take a look at this one real quick?
Sure.
You got it.
Great.
And a copy of the delivery agreement,
What's that?
the food delivery agreement for the record.
Okay.
Yeah, I got that too. I've been working on this for 6 months. That's a joke. Okay, so here's the parking agreement for US Foods
Okay,
delivery
great.
drop off.
And may we make copies of these so we can have it
Absolutely.
as part of the record?
Yeah, that would be the best thing if we could do that.
Is there any other questions?
Any other questions from any other board member? The only other thing I would point out to you, sometimes in the winter on that building, there's no gutters on the side, and particularly the side of the building towards the Phoenix building, on the west side of the building. What happens in the winter is the water comes off there, and then it'll pool in the sidewalk, and it'll create a hazardous icy situation there. The solution would be to put a gutter on there, but just wanted to make you aware of that.
Thank you, we'll definitely work on that.
I guess if there's no more questions,
Was there a garbage agreement you mentioned?
There is a garbage agreement with our neighbor to be picked up
That would
daily.
be great.
Could
I
we
have
have,
that as well.
could we make a
yeah,
copy
we
of
can
that?
make a copy of that as
Need
well.
that too.
Could you tell us a little bit about the location of the grease traps?
The grease traps
Yeah.
are down by my architect.
The grease trap is basically, it'd be under the floor in the kitchen area where the 3-bay and the mop sink, those are typically the fixtures that need the grease trap connected to it. So, working with the plumber once they get in there to make sure pitch is correct and things like that. The exact location's a little, until they get in there and start working on the plumbing and knowing where the
So
lines
it's
go and things like that. But it's gonna be an indoor, under the sink, probably about 50-pound grease
And
trap.
they lift it out to empty it and take it?
No, it's set in the floor, and then there's just a lid on it, and then the lid would get lifted and cleaned out, and then closed out.
Okay. Who takes away the grease?
Generally, there's an agreement with a maintenance contractor who handles restaurant grease traps.
Okay, and they come in.
It's a business in and of itself just to come out and clean those things. So
Okay.
there'll be someone that'll be signed up to provide that service.
Okay, if there's no more questions or comments, I'll make a motion.
There's one thing, Jeff and I have been talking, and I think the board, we're gonna talk to the board about this, but there'll be a requirement to have the grease trap locked. Based on something that just happened, if you have a trap with a cover, we're gonna request that it have a lock on it.
Gotcha.
There was a recent fatality in Rochester in a Tim Hortons where, yeah, okay, you're aware of that.
Metal top lock, right? That's what you're thinking, Steve?
Okay, I'll make a motion to open the public hearing. Do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
And I'm just gonna wait for comments until the clerk comes back so we can get your name and address and get that into the record. So if everybody can just wait just a minute, then I'll open it up for comments.
While we've got a moment, I want to recognize a couple young people in the crowd. So we've got Tom here from the Boy Scouts. It's Tom, right? From the Boy Scouts earning his badge, and we have Patrick Cosgrove, whose political interest is burgeoning, and we welcome him. We welcome him as well.
Well, welcome.
He's also my nephew.
That helps.
Excuse me.
Okay, would anyone like to comment on this application? And we need your name and address for the record.
Bob, I'm sorry, did we do a motion? That was me?
We did, it was unanimously approved.
Lily.
I made the motion, Lily seconded it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry.
That's okay. I'm sorry I missed the moment.
Any comments? No one wishes to comment on Rachel's. Guess you'll all be there to eat.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, guys. Good luck.
We really appreciate it. Thank you.
No, you're not done.
Well,
You're not done.
don't go anywhere yet, because we're going to, unless you want to leave, but we're going to deliberate and then we're going to vote.
Gotta close the
No,
public
no, I'm
hearing.
right here.
Okay.
Bob,
Yeah.
close the public.
No, I know.
Okay,
Don't
sorry.
worry.
Clerk,
I know.
clerk and I are both all over here, we apologize.
That's all right. I'll make a motion to close the public hearing. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. If the board is in agreement, I'm going to try to draft a resolution for approval with a few conditions. The first condition I would suggest is that we submit a detailed drawing just so we have some measurements on the planners. And I would ask that in 6 months, we review the success of the planners. If they're still there, then great, thumbs up. If they get wiped out by a truck or something, then we'll come up with a different solution. Everybody in agreement with that?
Yes.
Okay. Let me find my notes here.
Do you have a copy of the menu? I have a copy of the menu for our file.
I'll make a motion also to acknowledge that the applicant has submitted a plan for 4 shared parking spaces at Sutherland Auto, that they have submitted documentation of a trash agreement, and what was the other one? What am I forgetting here?
Delivery.
And an agreement for deliveries to occur
5 to 6 a.m.
5 to 6 a.m. in the morning. With an understanding of these conditions, the proposed application complies with access to the site and size of the site are adequate for the purpose. The proposal will not adversely affect the orderly pattern of development in the area. The nature, duration, and intensity of the operation which are involved or are conducted in connection with the proposed use are in harmony with the surroundings. The proposed use will not create a hazard to health, safety, or the general welfare, and I also make the amendment to include Steve's condition on the locked grease trap. The proposed use will not be detrimental to the flow of traffic in the vicinity, and the duration, the intensity of the use is very similar to the Starbucks use, which succeeded on the site for over 20 years. I think it's a very good use and will activate the center of the village. The proposed use will not place an excessive burden on public improvements, facilities, services, or utilities. Your cooperation in getting your employees, those that can't park in the 4 parking spaces, to park as far away from the 4 corners as possible, so that the general rule of the radial parking plan in the village is to keep the most convenient spaces available for customers, and especially for you as a restaurant, that's an important issue. The proposed site is located more than 100 feet from any residentially zoned and or used property. This parcel does comply with that requirement. The proposed use will not create late night activity or extended hours of operation, odors, noise from mechanical equipment, or other conditions that may be detrimental to either the quality of life of nearby residents or businesses. And again, because you're located remotely from any residences, this should not be a problem. Everybody okay with that? Okay, that's my motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote. Renee?
Aye.
Lily?
Aye.
Aye. Frank?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Thank you very much. You're approved.
Thank you, Renee.
Thanks, guys. Good luck.
Thank you.
And if you could get a drawing to Steve within the next couple of weeks on the plan or that, we just need a documentation. And we really should have because that is village right away, we should also have a separate resolution authorizing for the planner to be located in the village right of way. So I make that resolution subject to submission of a detailed dimension drawing to the satisfaction of the code enforcement officer. All in favor?
Aye.
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 You're approved for that too.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good evening.
So,
Hey, while we're on restaurants, anybody know what happened to Blaze? It's temporarily closed.
No, is it?
It is, and they've been doing great. There are a lot of people there. I don't know.
Don't
Anybody
you?
know?
Yeah.
Was
Yeah,
that-
they had several cases of people getting sick
Oh.
and a couple food poisoning, so they wanted to shut down for
Oh.
the overall, yeah, overall, and put out an article on it.
he actually, he took me through his restaurants for whatever reason. And, the way he runs, I guess he used to run some famous restaurants, maybe you guys know, maybe you don't.
We do.
Not that this has anything to do with anything, but that's not the way we operate our restaurants, and I wasn't too impressed with the, his workforce and the way he just conducts his businesses. I think what he was trying to do is get me to go over there, but I just respected his time, and then I just, so, but I didn't hear that it got closed.
It just says temporarily.
Temporarily, well, best of luck there.
Yep.
Yeah, he's good. It's a
And
good
we look
place.
forward to seeing you open.
Thank you.
All right, have a
Have
good
a good
evening.
night now.
Take care now.
Thanks so much.
Do we have anyone from Ampion for Consumer Solar? Come on up. Oh, yeah, there you are. Hi.
So I'm not sure if you've received a couple of the emails that we just sent you guys.
I did, and I've been
know.
swamped, and I owe you a reply. but I assumed you were on the docket, so.
Nothing is owed, yeah. So I'm Amy Gursky, I'm actually a village resident myself down at 103 South Main Street, so the red house next to Bev and Tom.
And Amy and I met 3 weeks ago, I think, to talk about the whole concept of community solar. And this is a really exciting idea, and I thought the rest of you should hear about this as well.
So just to give you a little background on myself, and then I'll introduce Brian. So I live between actually Pittsburgh and Boston. I moved to Boston for Amazon. And obviously I'm not a Bostonite. I am definitely a Village of Pittsburghite. You probably see me rolling down the street dancing to music in my earbuds. But I had found out this program was actually live and running in Rochester, and that there was literally next to no education or knowledge that the programs were actually up and running, live, active, and ready to go. So I happened to be in town when Mayor Corby was able to sit down with us. I said, first off, I wanted to know, do you know about this? Tell me what your education level is. So what I'm really trying to do is just bring in a resource to give you guys a little bit more understanding. I think it's imperative to the village just due to our architectural history and what we can really do in regards to renewable energy. So I'm not the one who knows everything here. I would say that would be a Brian thing. So
not everything, but hopefully enough to make you guys aware of what we have going on in the area. So my name's Brian Busby. I'm here representing Ampion. Ampion is a software and services provider to renewable energy developers. So we have clients that build renewable energy projects from solar to wind to hydro. And Ampion comes in and administers the programs associated with their projects. So, and we do really everything soup to nuts. They finance the project, they find the land, they figure out who's going to build the project, and then we swoop in and we take care of everything else. So we do the initial subscriptions, we do the customer service down the road. 10 years from now, you pick up the phone, if you're a subscriber of our solar farm, you pick up the phone, you're going to get somebody from Ampion on the line. We interface with the regulatory bodies, we interface with the utilities. So we have this client that has, they're called Abundant Energy, and they have 4 live projects in the greater Rochester area, one in Spencerport, one in East Bloomfield, one in Macedon, and one in Williamson.
And I just want to insert something here because I'm a big advocate of protecting farmland, which we spoke about in our conversation at Starbucks. And one of the things I liked about what they told me about this group is these are not the 2,000 acre solar farms on prime ag soils. These are miscellaneous parcels, brownfields, places that aren't good for anything else. That's where we're putting the solar. So it really is a true green initiative in the fullest sense of the word.
Yeah. Generally, located next to three-phase power, so you're not finding a lot of prime, big, huge farmland that's right next to the power that is needed for these, the distribution lines that is needed for these solar farms.
What's three-phase power?
I don't have a huge technical background.
I can explain.
I was like, here come the
I can
engineers.
explain it.
Yeah, exactly.
In our homes, we normally use 120 volt power. But if you're a commercial or industrial use, they have just like when power is on the power lines, they're high voltage lines, and they go to a transformer to change the voltage down to something lower that won't kill people, basically. Industrial uses use a higher voltage. That's what three-phase power is. Instead of one cycle, there's 3 cycles come through. So somewhere like the dairy, the Del Monte Lodge, any big commercial use like that uses three-phase power.
Very good, perfect, thank you. We have these 4 projects. They are up and running. They are already contributing clean, renewable, local energy to RG&E's electric grid. These are RG&E specific projects. We are at about 25 or 30% full. So these are live projects that have room for about the equivalent of 1,200 residents. So this is something that, we're just trying to connect with anybody and everybody to let them know that this is available, this is something they can do, this is something you can do even if you've got a big CCA project going on.
Yeah.
It just gets included, as long as the billing is consolidated. So as long as the various towns go through their process with the CCA and an energy company is chosen, hopefully a green energy company is chosen to actually generate that power for the CCA to purchase that power. As long as those supply charges are consolidated on the RG&E bill, then our program can just be layered right on top. And I'll briefly explain the way our program works. So the program is under a piece of legislation called Community Distributed Generation, and more specifically, a program that falls under that called VDER, the Value of Distributed Energy Resources. And the way this works is this project is developed. We don't take any money from actual participants or subscribers. You subscribe to a share of the solar farm's production based on your previous 12 months of historical usage. So I'll recap that. We come in, we take a look at the historical usage of a potential subscriber, and we determine from that what percentage of the output from the solar farm they would receive. And then since these are live projects, within about 2 months, the subscriber would be on a site and they would begin receiving credits, monetary credits, for the amount of power that's generated. So what happens is the power is generated on the subscriber's behalf, sent to RG&E, where it's tracked and metered and translated into this credit. Now this credit appears as a line item on the RG&E electric bill, capable of offsetting both supply and delivery charges, okay? So if you get enough credits to offset all those costs, then fantastic. The relationship that the subscriber enters into with our company is they agree to purchase those credits at 90 cents on the dollar. So a good way to understand it is whatever comes off of your RG&E bill, you pay 90 cents on the dollar for 1 month in arrears. So you open up your electric bill, you see that you've received $100 worth of credits, meaning your RG&E bill has been reduced by $100. And then approximately 1 month later, we bill you for that $100 worth of electricity that we generated on your behalf, but we bill you at 90 cents on the dollar, so your bill from us is $90 rather than the full 100 you would pay RG&E.
So the one thing that I'll share in this regard is obviously, you know, with living in the village and having restrictions and having to move towards renewable, we can't put solar on our rooftops. We don't want to see solar panels on rooftops. No offense to whoever was trying to put them on. But, you know, this to me, when I thought of this, it's pretty much, if you think about it, like a community garden. If you had to live off only the food that you grew and you had no land, if you were a renter, how would you possibly do it? You would do it through a community garden. It's kind of where the concept for community solar is coming from. So really it's pulling this clean energy to support anybody from welfare, renters to Danny Wegmans. So this program specifically doesn't have any credit checks. There are no upfront costs, which for me was just a given versus a lot of the other, well, there's really not even that many doing it, but to get a field, you typically have to get subscribers that give you some sort of deposit, then you build the field for them, 18 months down the road it's ready to go. We did it the opposite. So selfishly for us, I would love for the village of Pittsburgh to be the first historic village to go up solely on solar with no solar fields within the village. So maintain the look of the village and everything else. So selfishly, that's me. Again, this is their
And to
company,
me,
their business.
given our comprehensive plan and the emphasis on sustainability, and certainly as a community that for 60 years has been involved in historic preservation, which is a sustainable practice, and we have, I think, a population that is supportive of being green, it seems like it's potentially a good fit. So I wanted to have them come tonight and introduce this to all of you. No action is required tonight, but I'd like your feedback on what you think.
Yeah, there's, to piggyback a little bit, there's no proposal really being made.
Yeah.
We're sort of saying like in whatever capacity the village can support this, we would love to have your support.
We would love to support
that
you
simple.
guys.
Is the DPW facility held at the same standard as the residential houses around here in terms of putting solar panels on the roof down there?
You could put solar panels on.
Because we have transmission and distribution lines right next to our shop.
That's great, yeah.
So,
The roof of the, let me just answer your question, Zach. I don't see any downside to putting panels on the roof because that roof is largely invisible, number one. It's not shaded by trees, and it's a fairly big footprint, so it's a no-brainer.
Again, the struggle with the traditional solar panel model is less than 20% of homes in Rochester have enough space or get enough light to even just support the house, much less sell back. So a lot of my friends are running into, we got this quote, we put down a deposit, they rerun the numbers, and we're not even able to support our own house, so we're still going to have that dirty energy or whatever.
And the other issue, Amy, is that so many of the historic homes in the village have highly complex roof forms with gables and dormers that make it almost impractical to put solar panels on them because of the complexity of the roof form.
Yeah.
so do the residents engage this program through Ampion or through RG&E?
They would engage it through Ampion. So Ampion works very closely with RG&E through this whole process. The way you can think of RG&E's relationship here is they're sort of forced to participate in these programs by the legislation that was created, right? New York has very significant goals in terms of, goals and initiatives, and community solar or community distributed generation or VDER is one of the ways in which they'll try to get there.
It is one of the requirements to become, or one of the possible requirements to become a clean energy community also.
Yes.
Community solar is one of the caveats.
Another thing to mention is the way they've designed the legislation is they significantly incentivize community members joining the program. So much so that what they do is, and they do this with monetary incentives, they really prevent us from being able to go down the street and signing up like a Walmart or a Target, because they give the developer more money for this power by including residents, by including houses of worship, veterans associations, homes for and buildings that support the mentally disabled. these groups can participate in the solar farm, as well as small commercial accounts. So it's worth sharing that the village facilities itself may have some rate classes that would be able to, may have some accounts that have the appropriate rate class to join the solar farm.
Okay.
So that's worth looking into.
Okay.
And just to finalize everything, my mother went through this process. My mother is 75. I think you may have met Connie back in the day, but anyway, Connie's still alive. So it took Connie 5 minutes to go through the process of registering. So as complicated as it sounds, the goal behind Ambien was to create a seamless process for the consumer. Yes, it's complicated when you talk about regulations and costs and everything like that, but it's a 5-step process that literally takes 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's
So-
the enrollment is done via our online portal. We're a software company. It takes 5 minutes to enroll. There's 5 steps: basic information, utility account number, so on and so forth. Very easy.
Yeah.
Any questions about that?
Am I understanding that this would be a possible replacement for those who want to put solar panels on roofs in our historic district where they would not be appropriate?
100%.
Yes.
So it's distributed through RG.
That's a big thing.
Now do you see why I'm bringing it to my village?
No, that's a big thing.
I know.
Huge.
Anything from renters, like I said, so there's some of the houses on, at least I know on my walk, that are rented, they're paying their own RG&E bill. How are you gonna put solar panels on a roof if you're renting? So Ambien's whole vision is
Anybody can do that.
renewable for everybody, like literally everybody.
And it's extremely consumer-friendly terms, and that's something that Ambien is trying to push the industry in the direction of.
Yes.
It's no credit check. It's a 1-year term with an auto renewal. So it's meant to be sort of a long-term program that you join. However, if for whatever reason you need to cancel, you can cancel anytime by providing 90 days notice. Now, we do need the 90 days notice because that's something that goes back to the legislation. RG&E has within their right, they can take 60 days to process the paperwork. So if they take the full 60 days to process the paperwork as far as somebody joining the program or somebody leaving the program, then we need the 90 days to administer the change.
Okay. Do you have any literature that you can send us?
We do, yeah. I would be very happy to send everyone information.
And Mayor Kirby, I know I have your information, but I'm not sure about everybody, so if I forward something to you, would you mind sharing it?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yep.
So do we have, are we committed to RG&E as a provider for our municipal buildings? Are we under some kind of contract, or could we switch on the municipal side?
So I
Do
would
we
want to
qualify?
clarify, you're actually not switching anything. That's the nice thing. So if you're with
Just
RG&E,
engaging your,
yeah. So if you're with RG&E, you get an RG&E electric bill.
Yeah.
You can subscribe to our solar farm if you have the appropriate utility rate class. So, and I would be able to share with the board and Mayor Corby the appropriate utility rate classes for these particular solar farms. So, and then the only other limiting factor is, everyone has heard of deregulated energy, right? You can choose who the supply, the retail energy supplier is. So you can direct RG&E who to buy electricity from, whether it be Constellation or Ambit or any of these names ringing a bell, Direct Energy. Green Mountain is a green supplier. So that is totally separate from our program. And as long as those costs, and this comes back to the CCA a little bit, as long as those costs from those suppliers are consolidated on the RG&E bill, then they're simply costs that can be offset by the credits that we're generating on the subscriber's behalf. So someone can even be with a green energy supplier, like through the CCA, and still receive credits from our solar farm to see an additional savings and have that additional environmental impact.
To me, it seems like there's no real potential downside to this, and it's something that we should investigate, but.
I would really like sooner than later on that information. We have
Absolutely.
the APRB HPB is really taking a hard look at this right now.
Yeah.
So this would be a critical thing for us to have in our back pocket.
We also did meet with Bill Smith, and not Todd, is it Todd? Paul Sustainability,
Paul?
no.
Oh, Schenkel,
The MD. Anywho, very lovely man. He's head of sustainability. So we met with them, and even, we know the providers that they're, going between to administer the program. But like I said, they can even put a stipulation that they're utilizing our technology to do so, or whatever that may be, so, and combining both programs. So we promise complete transparency to them, just like we would to you guys. We're very open with the fact that we have our 4 active fields, and we do have a lot coming down the pipe as well. So, not built yet, but we'll be getting there, so.
great, so we look forward to getting your information.
Great.
Thank you for coming in tonight, good seeing you.
Thanks,
Thank you
Danny.
guys so
Good
much
luck.
for having us.
Oh, thank you.
Our meeting's on the 8th, so if we could get it in advance, if you could send it to Dorothy, or Dorothy will get it to me.
We'll get you information ASAP.
Thanks.
Yeah.
It's on the
Thank you
website.
all
It's
so
on
much.
the
Oh, go
Thank
to
you.
the website,
Thank you.
perfect,
Right,
yeah.
choose it.
I've already booked
And
one.
you-
Yeah.
there's a guy who's right around the corner from you who's an Amazon guy.
Yeah, he's with AWS. Yeah, totally.
AWS.
I built a startup division. Don't work for Amazon, just kidding.
Good night.
Good night, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Especially with us
Next up, we have a
being
non-municipal use permit from Pittsburgh Sutherland High School. Is anyone here or just, no?
Not usually. This is their annual homecoming parade. They provided their insurance. Typically, they give me the parade route. I assume it's gonna be the same parade route as they had in the past. Nothing really changing with this.
I'll make a motion to approve the non-municipal use permit for the 2019 Pittsburgh Sutherland Homecoming Parade.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Were there conditions last year, Dorothy? Are there conditions?
Is there a map?
They did not provide me a map.
They always do the same route. I think they generally
It's
go
the
down
same route.
Lincoln Avenue to Main Street to Monroe to Sutherland.
I can
Are
reach
they
out to
providing
them.
police for barricades or anything?
We have conditions that we've asked for before, and I would make the motion subject to the prior conditions
Sure.
that we've asked for.
Second.
Okay.
Because if we gotta be out there with barricades, they're just like, no, all the time. Last time the surprise is the day before.
I can review that situation.
Right.
He did provide insurance.
I think there's a motion on the floor, the mayor amended his motion to include that.
And Dan seconded?
Yeah.
All in favor of the amended motion?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. We talked about the code review schedule
Yeah,
earlier, so
it's
we
all
can
up there.
skip by that.
Do we want to run that by Jeff, or is?
I think I'm in the loop.
Okay.
Molly and I talked today, if you did what we talked about,
I did.
2 potential hearing dates.
Yeah.
I
For
definitely
the
did.
10th and the 24th.
10th and the
Yep.
24th.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, all right, moving on to grease trap covers, Steve?
Yep, well, I don't know how Jeff and I were talking about this, I don't know how we do this in adopting a local law requiring every grease trap to have a metal cover and be locked.
So this started with the
Yeah.
tragedy. There is an initiative by a couple assembly members to get New York State legislation passed. And I emailed you the 4 bullets that they're thinking about. I think we can get there faster than anybody else will ever get anywhere, including the county legislature. I don't think it would hurt to have, Steve and I just sort of brainstormed, but you don't have to be limited. It's a metal cover that can be locked. And I got a little education from Steve today about what these look like. Sometimes they're floor or ground mounted, sometimes they're receptacles, but they're all big enough to get into.
Right.
The theory that who's really gonna wanna climb into a receptacle that's 3 feet off the ground, but there wouldn't really isn't any harm in every grease receptacle having a metal cover and a lock.
Okay, there would be no problem in a child climbing on the one behind the lounge.
Yeah,
They would easily get up there, but there is no lock on that cover, so.
So does that mean even when they're inside that, because I understand the rationale in having it locked, a metal, you know, when it's outside, like what happened at Tim
They
Hortons.
were drowned.
But inside, when it's in the kitchen, we're still requiring a lock? Like, what's the practicality of that? I don't know, I've never, like, how often do you have to access it if it's got a lock on it and that you're a cook in the kitchen and you're trying to, like,
It goes in there through a pipe, so the only time that you access it is when you're cleaning out the grease.
right, is that once a day, or
I
is
would
that
say
like?
the majority of the restaurants around here seem to have indoor grease traps on
Okay.
them.
Right.
So,
But
It's
probably
like-
once a week, they probably get cleaned out in a typical operation, usually the size of them about once a week.
Right, so are they having to undo the lock once a week, or is it every day, or 3 times a day? you're
The
dumping it
grease
in?
trap itself is fed from the sinks.
Gotcha,
When they're
okay,
cleaning. You don't go and load the grease trap, that's just an outside one. The
Okay.
outside one, you would bucket it out or take it out and dump it.
okay, so the lock is only for the person who's emptying the grease trap, which isn't the
Correct.
person dumping the grease from the kitchen? Okay, I got it,
so the fact pattern was, this 3-year-old had accompanied mom to work.
right.
So I was thinking, well, what happens if mom's in the kitchen? You know, then you got the same problem, the way it's, I mean, I don't think it hurts, because it's not a frequent usage issue.
Yeah, I don't think you'd wanna make a rule that says only exterior ones get locked. I think it would be best to make a generic rule that you lock the caps on any grease trap.
Okay.
And you could add it to wherever it is in the stormwater, the sanitary sewer portion of the code, where there are grease traps discussed, you could add it, that any grease traps will have metal covers that are locked. There will be an initial inspection upon passage of the local law, and then an annual inspection as part of the what?
Part of their regular fire inspection.
So this can be part of the code that we're revising currently? We
No,
don't
you
have
can
to
put it
make
right, you can put it
separate-
in the,
We can do a separate.
you can put it in the sanitary sewer code, and you
Okay.
just move it to public hearing when, I mean, you want a copy of it before it goes to public hearing, right? So Steve and I'll come up with something for your next meeting, and you can move it to public hearing.
Okay.
We just lump it in with everything else.
I'll
on the
I'll be
10th.
done sooner than that,
Oh, okay.
should be sooner than that.
Well, when are we
When are you meeting next?
2 weeks, 4 weeks.
Two.
Well, we've got code meetings.
We've got a code meeting next Tuesday, but our regular meeting is the second Tuesday in August.
Can I
Okay.
make a comment in regards to the solar stuff?
Mhm.
Yes.
Well, can we finish this one first?
Yeah.
So, when do they meet next?
13th,
The
of
13th of
August.
August?
yes.
And if they moved it to public hearing, when could they then adopt it?
September 10th.
So you're right.
Well, we've already said the restaurant that Rachel's, we've already made that a condition that they have to have a lock.
Yeah, yeah, we
so-
made it as a request or requirement of their special use permit. The comment I want to make on the solar is, and I know you want it before the 8th, some for information, that will not offset a residential system. What they're generating at, literally you're paying 90 on 100 is not going to come close to a residential generation for, or say like what you're gonna put on, or propose maybe for the highway garage. The amount of recoupness or what you're gonna gain as an individual is way higher on the personal system than what you're gonna get from paying on 90 on $100.
Including the payback?
Hey, you heard them, you get a $100 credit, they want 90 of it. I don't know if you understand it, you get a $100 credit, they want 90 of it. So they're a middleman, taking the lion's share of the credit.
Are they trying to put the farm on our, like, if they were to put solar panels on our roof, then they're just asking?
That would be your system. That would be-
Yeah, I think, Zach, I think you have a very good idea. I think there are grants available. We can talk to Sophie about this, but we can probably find a grant to get help, and we could probably cover the DPW garage with solar panels, and whatever electricity we don't use from that, we can sell back to our
Correct, you
community.
sell it back, yeah.
Right, but I think that's a great suggestion.
I misunderstood what they were saying. I thought they were.
No, but you're onto something that I think, why not? Because the roof of the DPW garage, generally, you can't see it from the ground, so there's no downside to that.
Yeah, but there's two pieces to what Steve said. But
Understand.
you're still using green energy.
Correct.
It's just that you're maybe costing them more.
Well, there's another step here that there was no need to discuss it while they were here, but we're gonna vet. Whatever their official documents are, we'll talk to NICOM, and there's, you know, we have ways to evaluate whether it's a good deal for the village or not. But I think this is a first step, and I think going in the green direction is something most people would support.
And I would like to, if you don't mind, I'd like to bet there are some other community solar projects out there that may give a better return.
Let's look
Right,
at them
there's
all.
one, right?
Look at them all. Yep, absolutely. Good.
Can we go to a scheduling thing real quick?
Sure.
So the 13th is the one night all August that I have plans. Is it possible to do it the 20th or the 27th?
Sorry, could you say that again, Dan?
The 13th where we have scheduled, I have plans that night. I could cancel them if I need to, I'd rather not. If other Tuesdays are a possibility in August, I'm open every other Tuesday except that. And it's our one meeting for the month.
Dorothy, if we moved it to the 20th, what does that do to a publication date for, or a hearing date for the grease traps?
Yeah.
Not, and I just want to know the answer.
I need at least 3 weeks for posting of the public.
What about if they move something to public hearing or a code review?
Same problem,
What?
same
Yeah,
situation.
but I know, but they're meeting
If they
early,
have they have code review next, the 31st,
so we can get it ready for the 31st. And
they could move it,
and that's not
we
a problem for
can
the
set
building
it,
that's 13th.
yeah.
So we got it there for the 31st.
Whenever you get it to them, the sooner I can get on the calendar.
I can do the 20th. We were looking at other Tuesdays, 'cause
We're probably gonna have other meetings for zoning or code review, so what I'm wondering, Dan, is if there's critical issues that you wanna be part of the discussion, we probably could move them back and forward, so you could make sure you're in attendance. The only thing that, you know, Mary may wanna pay the bills by the 13th, which we could handle at probably a code meeting, but most of the agenda, I would have no problem moving it to the 20th if that works better for you.
Yeah. 20th good for you, Frank?
I think so, yeah. I don't have much.
Lily, 20th good for you?
The 20th of
August.
August instead of the 13th.
Instead of the 13th.
I'm fine with it.
I have a board meeting on the 6th, so I can't do it early.
Yeah, well, I think the 20th works,
Okay,
yep.
August 20th.
All right, that'll be the bulk of our,
Do you want me to be there on the 20th then?
well, let's see what's on the agenda, Jeff, we'll let you know.
Okay.
Are you around on the 20th? Okay, all
Do
right.
we have to make a motion to move it?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to move the regularly scheduled August meeting from August 13th to August 20th, to accommodate Dan so he can attend the single meeting of the month.
Thank you.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
I mean, I don't have a problem just being here like I am for normal meetings if you want me to. And it's not a problem.
Well, no, but I mean, we'll see what's on the
Okay.
agenda. If we
Thanks.
can give you a night off, we'll give you a night off.
Thank you.
Okay, job duties for the record archives clerk.
Were you able to pull that? Thank you. So, I put this on here because I'm just concerned that we've had an archivist quit or resign or retire. Retire is a better way to put it. And we haven't backfilled that position, and that has some very important, it's very important to pass the baton well on that. So whether we hire somebody tomorrow or 6 months from now or a year from now or whatever, I just wanted to talk about how serious we are about backfilling that. So there was stuff in here that was this the whole thing?
Dorothy and I have met several times to talk about this actually.
Okay.
And we both felt that Sophie, who has worked closely with Terry Robbins, understands the archiving system, has gone to training for archives, is become good with grants, also might be interested in doing that seasonally. She seems to be passionate about what she does so well outside in the summer, and we don't want to take her away from Zach because she's amazing. And she is thinking it over. I think by the end of the summer, we'll probably have an answer from her. But my first preference would be we could move her into the position with virtually no training, and she could probably handle it very well.
And Terry's available for training.
Well, she will be. I think she's probably still in rehabilitation,
She's good.
but she
Yeah,
would.
she's in good shape.
Yep.
Do we have to formally post the position as an open one?
No, not until we go to fill it.
Okay.
And we don't have to if we're promoting within.
Okay.
Because it's not, it's part-time positions, that's subject to, it's civil service, but it's not really subject to hiring through civil service. It's not a position that way. The way we've looked and we've moved that department with the grant we received from the records, even if we decide, even if Sophie decides she wants to do both positions, we could probably accommodate it. I'm sure Zach and I can come to some agreement with a few hours during the week. She could keep things along and then do most or bulk of her work in the wintertime to keep everything totally up to date.
Sure.
So us going digital might have helped us in the long run with this position.
So what's the next step then?
And the next step is actually to complete the review of the office staffing and go over everything that way and how we're gonna set up the office in the future, because that impacts that position as well.
And Dorothea and I and Mary are getting together to meet to discuss the plan for the office. We haven't done it yet because July, as you all know, is extremely busy, and especially being short-staffed with the taxes coming in. Dorothea has been here extremely long hours, and I didn't want to give her another burden because you all should know that Dorothea regularly works well past her normal working hours, and she's put in a Herculean effort to keep the office running, as has Mary as well. So thank you to both, because we know it's been a lot of work in the office the last few weeks.
We're getting through. 95% of taxes aren't. So life is good. The rest aren't, they'll be getting a no.
But we need the money. Okay.
Yes.
All right, anything else on that?
Nope. Thank you.
Okay, next item, member items. Dan, you're first up.
Oh, my question's really for Frank to talk about the process for legal invoice approval.
Yes. What would you like to talk?
Well, I want to talk about, so you made reference to the controller's report,
Yes.
and the one I could find on the village website was from 2015, 2016. Is that the one you were referring to?
Yes.
Okay.
And you'll find nothing in there with regards to a procedure
Right.
for paying legal invoices.
Correct.
And that's because their whole emphasis is proper documentation. And that's what their emphasis is, that bills are paid and they're paid properly. Now, I've got the report here, and I'll give you an example. The objective of our audit was to review the board's oversight of the village financial operations. Our audit addressed the following related questions. Is the board providing adequate oversight over the village's financial operations? So that's their whole emphasis. They don't say this is how you pay
Right.
legal bills. But if you've gone through a lot of audits, I mean, if you've done audits like I've done it
Yeah.
in banks, you know documentation is very important. I'll read another part from their audit. While the village officials were able to provide us with explanations for why they chose some of these service providers, and the rationale for the choices made were not maintained. Officials told us that they used an informal process to procure professional services. So throughout the audit, their emphasis is proper documentation so that if someone comes to Mary, to the treasurer, and says, you recommended payment of a legal bill, do you have verification for that?
Okay.
So what I'm saying is that it's not very complicated. It's actually very easy. All it takes is a memo to the treasurer that says, I've reviewed the legal bills submitted by blah blah, and that I recommend them for payment by the board. Something written that Mary has something in her hand, that if the auditor comes in, she hands it to the auditor.
Sure.
That's all I'm saying. And this whole thing started out when, in 2018, I was going through some of the legal bills, and I noted that there were some memorandum that were written regarding, one was about the RG&E right away, and how we can condemn it, and nobody asked for that. Nobody wanted that, but we had a couple $1,000s of bills for writing this memorandum, and we didn't even have it.
Right.
It was in their file.
Okay.
So with that, Bob Corby and I met with the attorneys, and we put together this procedure. I'm not going to read it, but it's right here. And we went over it with you, Dan, and you agreed to be the liaison to review these bills. So it's really not that complicated.
Okay. Now, here's my question. So you had said that it was, I'm glad you clarified that. You had said that it was in the comptroller's report, and there was no specifics in there about paying legal bills. So I'm happy to do it. A couple of caveats. There does exist an email chain between me and each of the board chairs when they technically approve and say, yes, every charge on here, so that, is valid. So that exists, and there is a record then, and I don't approve it unless I get that.
Okay.
So there does exist a record.
And you can forward that right on to Mary.
Sure, and that's what we've been doing. In some cases it's been a verbal approval.
It has to be written.
Okay, so it now has to be written.
It's an internal control.
Okay, so now then my other question is, since the comptroller's report doesn't necessarily point out, it talks about procurement of services much more than it talks about the monitoring of services once you have them in place.
Right.
My question is, are there other services that we need to follow this same process for? Because it seems unusual to only do that for legal expenses when we have engineering expenses and we have other recurring ones that are hourly as well. So are there other things that we need to follow this same process for?
I could make a comment here, Dan. I think the difference is that the legal expenses we need to, when the boards pick an engineering consultant, those are normally chargeable back to the applicant. That's not the case with the legal expenses. And we set a budget for the legal expenses, so what we're trying to do is make sure that we're hitting our target so we can hopefully manage the expenditures through the year.
And that's true, and that's a different, managing a budget versus a formal approval process are two very different things.
Well,
So if you want a burn rate, I can get you that. But it's more, so there's one piece of this I don't quite understand. So I'm going to approve in writing to you that I have reviewed them and they're okay, and then you bring it to the trustees for the vote?
Yes.
Okay. And there's no other bill that we pay other than legal fees that need to follow this process. So this is the one thing.
Can I just
Generally go ahead.
throw a quick thing out there? All the other bills are split by department. Zach will go through a set of bills, review to make sure those are exactly what they should be. I just started working with Mary on sets of bills I'm reviewing, making sure they match and then they go to you. In this case scenario, it was decided that a trustee should actually look at the legal
Yeah.
bills, given the amount of legal bills, and talk to the boards instead of a department head.
It's similar to the process that after Mary reviews all the bills, I go through all the invoices and make sure that what she's written up matches the invoice that we've received. So we do have a similar process for everything else.
And I.
But it's not, because we have to do it in writing and it's an extra, so, now, my other question is, do I need to go back in time and formally provide approval in writing for these prior approvals?
If you have that information, that would be good to have, and I could attach it to what I do already have, so that in the future, if an auditor comes in here, it is all complete in one record.
Okay.
So if you have it, I would appreciate it.
Okay.
Going forward, I would appreciate you just reviewing the bills, making sure the charges as far as what is written is correct, like, Frank had said, we had charges on it that, like for the RG&E right away that nobody had asked for, and we were trying to contain the, amount of legal bills that we did have to a lower number rather than a higher, and for things that were actually requested. So,
Yeah.
that is the purpose mainly of you're like an additional layer to
Sure.
all of this, to make sure that the charges are what the boards have requested. It is correct as written. You've reviewed them, they're okay to pay as far as you're concerned, there's no kind of discrepancies with them.
Yeah, and we've just
And
done
then
that
I bring them to the board
yeah,
for the, full board approval.
and we've done that verbally at the board meetings during the bill pay.
Right, but it
So
should be
it's
written
not,
so that I
not
have,
done.
no, but I should have a written record because verbally, the tape is only good for a few months and then that gets destroyed. The written record stays with the voucher for 6 years if we get audited in that time.
Okay,
The question is answered when that voucher is pulled.
Okay.
So that's part of my own procedure, internal control for things.
You okay? Anything else on that? Okay, Renee, you had an item?
I did, well, it's an old item, but Zach, before I left, Zach and I mapped out a good place. You guys have all this information for the extra bike rack that Peter Budd requested, and lots of other people have said that, especially during the time when the big bike tours come through in the summer. We originally talked about a seasonal bike rack, but we found a spot next to the other one, right next to Aladdin's. It's tucked back in there. It's like perfectly made for another bike rack. And we did the measurements. It's a 108 inches, right? Okay. Yep, 9 bike rack. It's in your packet, or it fits 9 bikes. I'm sorry, and it would stay out. Zach said it's easier. Originally, we thought it would be better to take it in and out as an extra one, but he said it's easier for them if it just stays up all year, just like the other one.
Okay.
So we think a black. It's steel, but it's painted.
It's
What is the
powder
coating?
yes.
Powder coating. It looks really nice. It won't match the other one. It'll match the style, but the other one is galvanized steel, so it's just kind of.
I think the black's gonna look good.
And eventually, when we replace that one, maybe we can move that silver one to another location, and we get a nicer
Yeah.
bike rack. And it's $398. I don't know if does that include shipping and everything?
I think you could assume shipping is probably on top of that.
Okay.
Yeah, there's
I
no
don't know.
extra charges for shipping, but
Okay.
it's kind of hard to determine until you.
Until we order it,
Yeah,
so we don't know what the
because they
shipping
don't know
will be.
what it's on.
But we can guess, and I think we could make a motion to approve the expenditure of $309.
Okay, and it doesn't need to be, we don't need to.
Plus shipping.
Okay. What is our limit before we have to, get several different quotes?
We're
This is a vendor
we're
quote.
well below.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what
Yeah,
we
that was
are.
your word,
All right, so, I would like to make a motion to approve, purchasing an additional bike rack. You have all the information, Dorothy, already on the specifics of it.
The
and-
traditional plus bike rack.
Yeah, it's the second one that's in there, the one that's powder coated.
Yep.
So the traditional powder coated bike rack, right now, it says it's $398 on sale.
Will,
So-
which budget line is it going to come out of?
Yeah.
Parks.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll second Renee's motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Go ahead, Will. Oh, before we move on, can I just piggyback on Renee? Renee and I, now that she's back from an amazing vacation, are gonna schedule a meeting with the captain of the sheriff's department.
Oh, I have a name for you also if you need.
Oh, do you have the number?
Yes.
Could you give that to me? Because I wanted to find out times that work for you, and I'll try to schedule a meeting.
Is this the new deputy? Okay, he sent me his information too, but if you have it handy, go ahead and.
Sure.
Because I meant to put it in my phone and I didn't, and now I have a new phone and I don't have it.
I can either email it to you tomorrow.
Email it to me, either way, you send it to me. Do you want to schedule that one, and I'll schedule the DOT one? Do you want to do it that
I'll
way?
do that,
All right,
perfect.
okay, and we'll just email each other.
Okay,
All right.
and then do we need to also go over the Erie Canal Park and Preserve plan, or do you want to wait until our next meeting?
I was gonna do that as a memorandum. I met
Okay.
with Bill Smith today, so I have some more updates.
Okay, perfect. And you already covered the ATP, which is another thing I remember.
Yep.
So.
When you guys meet with Captain, will you also discuss about posting, someone on South Street?
Yes.
Just having a car there, even if it's just parked.
Yep, even if it's a dummy car.
Yep.
Yep, that's on our list. Great. Lily, you had some memorandums?
I did. I had two questions that I had sent in emails in the last week or two, and I can't remember the dates. I apologize, but I sent to Jeff two questions. One of the questions was that at one of our meetings, a trustee requested that we would the board be amenable or agreeable to ejecting a citizen from the room if the citizen said uncomfortable, I can't remember the word that was used,
Personal
things to the
attacks.
board that were insulting or similar, and would the board be agreeable to having a citizen removed from a meeting? So my question to Jeff was, by law, what is the procedure for asking a audience member or citizen to leave a meeting?
I emailed Nikon and emailed Wade with Wade, and Wade said, provided you need a policy, and the policy will include a warning, and if the warning is not complied with, then you can direct the person to leave. And if the person doesn't leave, then you call the sheriffs. So you need a written policy
Okay.
that is followed, and I have it in Wade's, it's not gonna be complicated, I have it in Wade's email. But that's basically it. You give him a warning, and if he or she does not comply, then you ask him to leave.
Did he suggest guidelines for specifics?
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
Yeah, I mean, that's all in the email, but they're,
Then I suggest that we adopt a policy, and to make it clear, I think it would be helpful to have specifics.
well, I don't think you should adopt the policy. I'll put one together if that's what you want.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
So the chairperson, the chair, would determine whether a person was out of order.
I guess, thinking my way through it, I would say that the first time it would be by consensus, is there something, how does the board feel about this conduct, and should there be a warning? And then you would probably do the warning by motion, and ask them to leave by motion. And then call the sheriffs by motion, but I haven't really given it a great deal of thought, but it seems like that might be the way to do it.
It's an infrequent occurrence, but we have had
Yes.
contentious meetings with applicants in the past where obviously if we had a policy like that, you probably can remember some meetings where it might have
So
come.
you can call that.
I don't know about consensus on that. I'd like to ask a question about that, because if one member of the board doesn't feel safe based on the actions of a member of the audience, and that member of the audience is friends with 3 of the board members, you're not gonna get consensus to have them removed. And still the problem remains that a member, even if it's one, doesn't feel safe. I don't think consensus is needed, because anybody should be allowed to call for this.
I'll dive into this in more detail in a way.
And then come with a proposal that we can.
My sense is, Dan, is it's gonna be, the board can't act any other way but by consensus. That's, I think, gonna be the problem. is that, I get your point, but I'm not sure how the board actually would act as a board without some kind of formal vote. And obviously, if it has risen to the level where you don't feel safe, or a person doesn't feel safe, then that person has the right to dial 911.
Well, I think also if we had clear parameters, Dan, you know, then it would be a contentious issue, because obviously we want to support everybody on the board.
Of course,
so nobody
if
feels-
somebody is being threatening, no one is gonna stand for that behavior, no one.
All right, why don't I dive into this a little more deeply and see if we can come up with something that meets those concerns.
There are some guidelines that I've seen in New York, in some New York State municipalities, where it is specific about incidents that would be considered reason to eject, that you have to be so careful regarding, because it's unconstitutional, and just because someone raises their voice or says things that you don't care for is not a reason to eject them from a meeting, because they have the right to say what they want to say, even if you don't like what they're saying.
Except they don't have the right to disrupt the meeting. I mean,
No, that was the line that was drawn.
Right.
Right. And they should not interact with each other.
I'll see if Wade's got any proposed policies or if he want.
But it's not just disrupting the meeting, it's threatening language.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
During a meeting.
Yes.
So, let me see.
We
what-
don't have the
let me see
ability.
Let me see what Wade has, and I'm guessing it, he's not gonna wanna suggest something though. So, let me see what he's got.
Thank you.
That's just not what they do. They
Everything we're
don't design
discussing
policies.
would be, it happens in a meeting. That's where it happens. We don't have any jurisdiction over things that happen outside of this public forum.
Well, I mean, I can envision a scenario, and it's going way beyond what we've talked about, but where somebody comes into the village office and is being disruptive to the staff, hasn't committed a crime, not justifying 911, but could be directed to leave. I don't know if the policy should include that as well.
Yeah,
Okay, that's a separate policy.
I guess I disagree with that, Willie, because I can think of past incidents where people had been out in the hall after a meeting or something, and there have been people that have literally threatened other people in the hall that had nothing to do with us as a board, but sometimes it was an applicant in the public when they were on opposing sides of an issue, and there were harsh words that went back and forth, and it has, not recently, but in the past, it has escalated to a point that you may have wanted to call the sheriff or ask him to leave. So I think having guidelines would help us all understand, you know, when are someone's rights infringed upon, and what can we do to support them. Okay?
Okay.
All right, so we'll get a proposal from Jeff.
Second one was a question that I had asked previously, and I'm still unclear about the answer. And that is meetings that happen outside. Bob alluded to it in his mayor's statement. If you take a meeting with an individual or group, and you are subsequently taking a vote that involves that individual or that group, are you obligated to disclose that prior to taking the vote?
So a private meeting with a developer, let's just say,
Yeah.
or a homeowner, and you've discussed, I don't believe that you would be required, it would be prudent,
Be prudent, okay.
but I don't think you're required to disclose those. For instance, if somebody called the mayor and said, hey, what do you think about X, Y, and Z? The mayor is a natural contact person as the mayor of his village, as would any trustee be a contact person. And you said, I'll come down and talk to you, being public servants. I think if that came before the board for a vote, you're not required to disclose it, but it would be prudent and probably best practice. because everybody should know what's going on.
To disclose it, not recuse yourself.
Right, just disclose it.
Depending on.
Bob often does it, I'm focused on Bob because I hear him do it the most. Just so everybody knows, I talked to Joe Blow about this, and we had the following conversation, and I asked him to come here and talk to you. So that's how I would handle it. I think that's probably the prudent thing to do. I don't think it's required.
But what defines a meeting? This is a challenge because I walk to work, I literally bump into people every day who are suing us.
So I think that if you're just, my example would be if you're talking as a trustee to somebody about an issue that's gonna come before the board, you're not required, but I think it would be prudent to say, I've had a discussion with Joe Smith about his special permit application and what I thought about it. And that way you're on the record as having discussed. The applicant then can't say, well, you said something different, or kind of sandbag you in that way, and you've told the board what's going on. Not required.
Okay. Good enough, thank you.
Okay, my member item, I wanted to give everybody an update, and Renee, if I miss anything, feel free to chirp in here on the nature park. Last Wednesday, I met with Paul Schenkel, Sue, remember her last name?
Yes, Steele.
Reddick.
Sue Steele and the architect. Basically what the town is proposing, I know this is small, but this is the best documentation I have tonight. This is the nature park
Oh,
area.
I can bring it up on my laptop.
You probably have a bigger
I
screen.
do, yeah.
'Cause-
Bring it up, but you keep talking and I'll, I've got it
Anyway,
up already.
the first phase will fund the construction of a bike path, a 10-foot wide path similar to the Brickyard Trail in Brighton, if anyone's been on that. And it will connect the canal directly with the Auburn Line Trail. It would go across the northern extreme tip of our property by where the old Auburn Line underpass is. It would also include the first phase of reconstruction of the barn that was salvaged from Calkins Road, and that would be located here. There's a number of approvals required for this. Because it's located next to the canal, which is a National Historic Landmark, the town got state funding. It has to go through a 1409 process, which requires consultation with SHPO. Because we're a certified local government, we should be able to be a consulting party as part of that. It also will require a consistency review, and no building permit can be issued for the project until the village planning board issues a what's the waterfront? What is that? LWRP consistency review. Thank you very much. One of the other things that in the proposal that I was showed is there was a land swap where, if you look at Renee's better drawing, you can see it there.
So in order, they own, right now, these two parcels aren't connected, and in order to connect the Erie Canal Trail to the Auburn Trail, we need to have a little connecting piece. So the proposal is hasn't been done yet, right?
No, and I talked to Bill Smith about it this morning because I have a concern about that, because if if they give away that collection of trees there, right now those trees screen the Harris property from the canal. If you give that to him and he makes it park cars, you're gonna bring that commercial use right to the water's edge. And all of the year you're going to see how ugly it is over there. So I was urging Bill to reconsider that issue, just buy the parcel from Paul and retain at least the big part of that, because you want to provide, there's a pretty good tree buffer, so this time of year you can't see any of the parked cars, the cell tower, or Paul Harris's building. They don't want to buy that other parcel because I believe there's probably some brownfield dumping on Paul Harris's.
This little part?
Right in there, yeah, I believe so. I have some information on that.
And how was he receptive to that? Or?
He was receptive. The other thing I was concerned about at the meeting I had last week is Paul Schenkel was trying to move this on an expedited schedule. Bill Smith told me there's no real need to do that, and there's significant details like how do they get the utilities to the barn. Paul has suggested bringing a road in by Paul Harris's and to the parking lot that way, well, on the
Oh,
north
to
side
come
of
this
it.
way, or to
Yeah,
go
which
through
you
DP?
drive through all that ugliness to get to the park.
Yeah,
A better solution would be to take the access road that goes to the town sewer department, bend it underneath the bridge. There's plenty of room there to keep the trail there and have a small road to feed a parking lot, which would be part of phase 2.
because the idea is to make that a nicer, the way Sue explained it, is to make the barn rentable like Kings Bend Park is. It's not part of phase 1 because they only have a grant to reconstruct the barn and to do the trail, but they want to make it an upscale version of that so someone could have a wedding there or.
But it sounds like the town is willing to come up with more money to do the full barn project now, which would be great. It's a wonderful place to put the barn. The utilities is an issue, the siting of the parking lot is an issue, so there's a lot of other things to work out. Last week, Paul Schenkel was trying to well, we don't need any more meetings. Well, there's a lot of design issues, so I made the case to Bill Smith, and he seemed very receptive this morning to scheduling another meeting, which I hope you can be there, Renee. And because I think this could be a very, very good project. He's talked to Margot Fass, the Frog Lady, about even getting their assistance to do some interpretation to explain to people the ecosystems that this trail will run through. So I think it's a win-win-win, and it would also reserve our parcel could be more passive open space with walking trails versus their trail that will be both for bicyclists and for walkers as well.
Yeah, and this is a great way to connect the two trails, and they put a boardwalk over the marshy lands. It's a nice little.
Really
feature,
wonderful
so.
project,
Yeah.
and to have that much open space in the walkable heart of our community, it's a huge asset. So this is a home run.
Great.
Okay. Next item, Zach. Zach, are you still awake? Okay, thank you.
For now. Just quick.
I just want to tell you, whoever's doing the striping on like Southern Street looks great.
Yeah, Southern
Nice
looks
bold
nice.
lines.
All right.
Yeah.
Looks
Well,
really
Brad
good.
Bager is better. So
Yep,
I was
looks,
going nuts with it.
he's doing really well.
All right. I was actually gonna ask you to walk around.
Yeah, it looks
That's
fantastic.
Continue on like we are.
It really, did you see it right there?
Yeah,
It
I
really
saw it this
stands
morning. It
out.
looks good.
You know, we had some rain this afternoon, which kind of messed things up down there a little bit, but it'll wash away. It'll be.
Yeah, it'll be fine.
I was gonna beat the horn in until you wanna go by my name. Just jogging the white line.
Brad might have thrown some at your car.
I was telling Brad I'm impressed with the precision, because not only is it bold, it's precise, it looks
Yeah.
great.
That's
Yeah.
Brad, all right.
All right.
So the sidewalk on South Main Street at Gaskin Place, last week I reported on what we had done down there, but it was not up to when we had started to pour the concrete, so we removed 50-foot by 5-foot section of sidewalk on the west side of South Main Street at Gaskin Place. This area was problematic with ponding during the wet weather conditions.
I know what you mean.
The residents of Gaskin Place were reporting ice slicks during the winter months that were caused by this. The sidewalk, and at the same time, we're gonna go back to Gaskin Place because the way that we deadened the sidewalk is now the sidewalk is sitting higher than Gaskin Place.
Mhm.
We had to put cold patch going down to the driveway, so it's
Sure.
kind of, it's a rough ramp going down to
Yeah.
the driveway.
Yeah.
So we'll go back through and tear that out and pitch it correctly and looking. But we're going to start doing that today, but we could not get the planer or the Bobcat from the town, so hopefully we're gonna start it tomorrow.
Okay, all right.
I'll keep you posted as we go through that too. But I'm guessing we're gonna probably put down about 15 tons of asphalt on that street alone. Yeah. The trees out in front of, I forget the businesses over there, they changed.
Like the Drip House and the Stereo Store and
Yep.
those places.
Yeah, so we trimmed those trees, I don't know if you've noticed, but.
Yeah, I did. Are you happy with as much as,
Yeah.
you took as much as you could?
As much as we could reach off the ground with our pole saw, we did not go up on a ladder because I didn't really see it necessary. We can't thin the tree out to where it's, not a tree anymore.
As the tree grows higher, you can always trim it higher,
Yep.
but I think I looked at it and I think you did a good job.
Yeah, those guys, I think,
And-
they took
and
a lot of.
I noticed they trimmed them on Monroe Avenue because there were a couple of limbs that were really getting low there. So
Yep.
I think
They were
So-
out today, too.
I'm sorry?
They were out this morning too.
Yep. So Doug, he's continuing down South Main. Right, today he was doing the west side of the road, so in front of the kitchen, lounge, the town hall.
I did in front of my house, so you don't have to do that.
Nice, thank you. Locust Street drainage, I know I've reported about this before, but it's an ongoing problem, and it's gonna cost a lot of money to fix it, so we've been kind of band-aiding it as we go along here. But, recently, we ran into a blockage. The drainage starts up at South Main and it continues east, going down the hill to south.
Right.
Everything on the north side of the road runs to the south side of the road, and there's one continuous pipe that goes basin to basin to basin all the way down Locust. So from the basin that sits at the corner of South Main Street heading east, and then from that basin to the next one, we had blockages. We usually go in there and we're able to push through it with a flush truck and get everything flowing again, but we couldn't get through this time. So the basin that is the start of that system is holding the water.
So what do we do?
So what we're gonna have to do is dig the pipe up and replace it. So I'm starting to get quotes for that.
Okay.
I started with Mason Trenching, who's always been our go-to in the
Yep.
past, and I got a quote for the first two sections. First section is quoting me at $5,500, and that's replacing an 8-inch pipe with an 8-inch SDR35 plastic pipe, so PVC. And for the next section, it's $3,500, so it's $9,000 to replace those two sections. That's trenching the road out, replacing the pipe, backfilling with stone, bringing it up to grade with stone until we're able to get on the
And is the pipe, is it underneath the asphalt?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's about 4 foot down, so quite a bit of digging, and it's a pretty good stretch. I think it's about 350 feet total.
That's a good price, actually.
Yeah, there is Villager Construction who is on state or county contract, so I met with the guy, brought him in, took a look at it, and he's gonna get back to me with a quote, so at this price, I am required to get 3 quotes for it. There is a blockage there, it is holding water, I don't see it being an emergency situation at this point, so if county contract or Villager comes through as
We'll see. Right.
most likely, it'll probably be through them.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
So we've got a catch basin that if we have a monsoon rain, we may have a problem.
We may have a problem at that point, then it's an emergency, we can call in whoever we want.
Okay.
Right now,
Okay.
that's what we do. But to replace that, eventually we're gonna have to go through and dig that whole road up and replace across the road and also down the length of the road, so it's gonna be,
Right.
it's gonna be costly.
That road probably will need a full reconstruction, and at some point, after we do our other major projects,
Yeah.
it should have curbs too.
Yep.
So it does need, and where they paved over the shoulder, that needs to come out, so there's a project there.
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah, the section, where the parking is next to the Presbyterian Church.
Episcopal Church, yeah.
Yeah, that's in ruins right now. too.
Yeah.
And the sidewalk's higher than the road and it's just
Well, if
sloped up there, so we'll have to.
We could put a curb in there and it would fix it, but that's down the road.
Okay. Other work that we've done, we're currently on a road sweeping schedule every other week. I know it doesn't always look like that, but every other week we're out there sweeping. It's usually about a day and a half, 2 days to get everything done.
No, that's good, because especially this year, for some reason, a lot of stuff has come down.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but it seems more than normal, and
Yeah.
I'm glad you're doing that, because it keeps it out of the catch basins.
Yep. Road striping will begin the week of July 22nd, as you see it's started.
Yep.
So I wrote this the other day.
It's all right.
Vehicle service, maintenance, and inspections, we're currently, going through, we just finished repairing, the brakes on truck 1, which is our oldest vehicle at this point. It was the 2004 International 7600 that we got from the town. That's our biggest dump truck. We do some brake service to it. And that is out for inspection right now. Next up is truck 2, which is the 2009 International 7400. And I think that is a good repair at this point. It's just got to go out for inspection. So we're working on that currently also.
Is that a new truck coming in?
I haven't heard anything more from George, but I'm hoping
Soon?
October.
Okay,
It
October.
sounds like
Okay.
October, November.
October? Yeah. We've got the financing in place, but we just don't have the truck.
All right, let me know when the truck comes in, I'll take a picture of it. We're gonna celebrate.
You know,
I'm sure you're gonna
oh
celebrate
yeah,
too.
we're gonna have a cookout. We did put a new trash receptacle at the bus stop.
It's
Thank
nice,
you.
I saw it.
Thank you,
It's
yeah.
much better.
And
And
we
it
are
didn't
getting,
cost us anything. 'cause
no,
you
it
had
was free,
yeah.
actually. It was
Oh, you know what this is not a high priority item, but when I walk the dog, I can't stop looking at stuff. It's awful because over the weekend at the Breathe, driveway,
Yep.
there was a hole and it had collapsed underneath there. And someone could have driven and that whole roadway would have collapsed. They've come back.
Yeah.
I know, I saw they fixed it today.
Yeah, I talked to RG&E yesterday, and a couple weeks ago, they did a gas service replacement, and they just cobbed the patch together with cold patch and stone.
A mess.
Yeah, and so
There was a hole on, I think it was Friday or Saturday, it was Friday afternoon, the hole was like that, and you could look down and there were about 18 inches and
See,
it was a cavity.
I was notified of it yesterday. I can't believe this is the whole weekend.
See, no, here's what I talked to Cindy White, she told me that RG&E put in a new service. She said she was gonna call them, and I went to the town because everybody was gone for the afternoon because it was summer hours. So I asked Paul Schenkel if they could have someone from the town at least put cones over there so nobody would drive in that entrance. I think he was gone for the afternoon too, so.
There were 3 cones there.
Cindy did it.
Okay.
Cindy did it. Because I was gonna go down and get them for myself and put them there,
All right.
because I couldn't.
Next time, definitely call me because Steve's here. Whoever's on 8-hour days during the week,
I could have
they're
reached.
here until 2:30.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so someone should have, I don't know what time it went through there. but-
Well, I should have called you, that was my fault, I should have thought of that, and I didn't. In any case, it was coned off and
Yep.
no accident.
Yeah, so, yeah, they've since come through and repaired it.
The other thing I was gonna mention, down at the DPW garage, someone's knocked over the trash cans that are in the, I don't know if there's anything we can do to make them stand up straighter so they don't dump the trash.
Yeah, we're, like we did with the garbage can over the bus stop, we put a post breakaway in the ground and we're hooked to that.
Yeah,
They're gonna be permanent that way, but
that's fine,
yeah,
that's
at least
fine.
they won't be, they're, every other week they're knocked over.
Yeah, I know, it's a pain.
Mowing and trimming cleaned out the brush out back here. I don't know if you guys noticed that.
Yes, it looks good.
We ended up taking out 3 truckloads of brush back there because it was so thick.
It was a mess.
Yeah, John spent a good salad for that.
Oh, I didn't thank her for that. I didn't know it was Joan.
It
I
was
saw her
Joan.
this morning. I
I see
should
that.
have thanked her. Okay. All right.
Yeah, so I didn't I don't know if I went over this with you yet, but this is where we are at with our trees for removal. The ones that we've taken out, trees to be replanted and stumps to be ground. So this is where we're at for this year. And this look at is pretty much up to date. Oh, and we did cut down another tree over on Bowden, over by a house that's on the corner of Wood. One of those maples that are up.
Yes.
I can't.
Can we keep this somewhere, Zach, so next year when we plant, I'll have this? Also, I was looking at the right-of-way map, and there was a big tree in front of ESL that came out maybe 2 or 3 years ago. It had died. But we own the property in front of ESL, so we can plant more trees in there, which is awesome.
Like the whole front yard from the side.
That's our property,
All right.
because of the old village green, what I was talking about
Yeah.
earlier tonight. So next year, that's a priority. We'll put them so they don't block their window, but it'll look so much better with more trees on, what could be better than more trees?
Right.
Nothing, right?
Less cars, that could be better.
Well,
Frogs could be better.
Frogs.
how about trees and frogs? Trees support frogs, okay.
I'll make you copies of these if you'd like. And
Yeah, would you put
them
one in
your
my box? That would be great.
All right.
All right.
Very good. That's all I got.
Okay, thank you.
I'll keep you posted on the quote that I get from Villager for the replacement of the drainage on Locust. And if I need board approval for that,
We have zoning meetings that we'll be having, so if you need to get an approval from us, we'll have special meetings that we can probably do that.
okay,
Okay?
very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve? By the time you get back to Hamlin, it's gonna be
Tomorrow?
all right.
It's all right.
Sleep here.
Did everybody get my report? The
Yes.
copy?
Yep.
So obviously, you saw we've taken, close to $2,000 in application, about $220,000 worth of work with those applications. I make it a habit now to walk everywhere, so I notice and find people doing things that, they haven't permitted for, and obviously they argue or, well, we didn't know. I've got 3 different projects that were being conducted without permits to come in and take care of the proper paperwork. 2 of the projects that are ongoing, I found major mistakes in and made them redo all the walls and breeze. I had to have them rip them out and fur them all out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then all the plumbing over on 56 Heatherhurst, or 46 Heatherhurst was all conducted wrong, so I had to have them rip that apart and redo it. Obviously, every day, questions and emails from residents, different questions. The gentleman for the smoking issue over at the Canal Park, I talked to him again and assured him, which we gotta figure out what we wanna do signage over there of some sort, because it is in our code for no smoking in Canal Park, but there is no signage. So we've had concerns from residents that they wanted his grandchildren there. They were in one of the pavilions fishing and people were smoking. And they left. So he was very unhappy, so I talked to Zach. I want to maybe just put one in each of the covered buildings, maybe one on each end of the Canal Park, just so people entering will see that it's a no smoking zone.
Yeah, I would say, if we had like at either end on Shane Place, Village of Pittsford Park, and I agree, if you could get a sign that was on the back of the post, on the inside of the post, no smoking. Yeah, it's not we don't have places to throw butts. It's just, they're gonna go in the canal. The other thing too, and I should have mentioned this when Zach was here, the erosion that's happened this year. The canal has been unusually high.
It's running fast. I know it's running pretty quick.
It's very high.
Very, very high, and there's a lot of erosion on the bank just east of where the main wharf is for the Sam Patch. And someone, there's one of those flies. Someone is going to twist an ankle there because, especially at night, you can't really see the edge, and it's quite a drop off there. So that we should talk to Zach about. We should get a contact at the Canal Corp and see if they could do something about that, because that is they improved the walk, they put in the riprap on the walk, and now it's all gone.
Right. We had 10 applications come before the HPV, busy month for them, and each one of those takes, a little bit of time to research, dealing with the applicants and making sure things are all complete. I got addressed issues concerning parking Pittsford Dairy with Charles. He moved all the wood structures back so that we have a complete fire lane there. That took a couple of meetings for him to get him to understand that we had to have fire lanes there. Cole Tower has cut down everything in front. They've killed off the garden there, which was pretty nasty looking. And I got the Episcopal Church and the surrounding properties on Mike Newcomb to modify drainage on the building so that it wasn't killing 17 Church Street. So the lawn is now finally growing. There wasn't a river going through it anymore. That place is up for $950. I don't think they want a river going through the side yard there.
Looks nice. Those mahogany windows are beautiful.
They spent a lot of money on those windows.
Beautiful.
Conducted over 25 building project inspections, footers, framing, plumbing, insulation, and a couple of completions over the month. Have done extensive research in some of the ADA requirements in regards to Chase Bank, did some ADA upgrades there. Several questions on signage, and then we've been delving into solar insulation issues, so we've done some research and got some materials printed off for the
And the HPB is going to have a special meeting to sort of look at the issues surrounding solar.
Yeah, unfortunately I won't be here. I'll be gone that week.
Well, maybe you and I will talk, because I'm going to attend that meeting and maybe I can represent you.
Okay.
Okay.
I've started a list of all the rentals within the village. I'm up to about 65 right now. rentals and associating with the owners. And I will hopefully over the next month or two get a complete list of all rentals within the village so we can implement a rental registration.
What's happening with the former zombie house that I think they're flipping on State Street? Because I noticed the landscaping was still kind of a
It's
mess.
not been there. That was
Oh,
Nunzio.
Uh-huh.
I don't know what's going on. I will contact him because he
Okay.
came in and got approvals for the roof
Yep,
and then
nothing's
nobody's been
happening.
there.
Yeah, okay.
So
Because the
I
landscaping's all coming up in weeds, it looks terrible.
I do know the gentleman that he had working for him, he had a health issue.
Okay.
So that may be the factor on it, of what's going on there. But I will check in that because they were going and gangbusters on for a bit and then
It just stopped.
it stopped, so.
Yeah, okay.
I've also started, as time permits, I did complete pictorial current reference of Boughton Street. And I will do a street at a time when I have time. I will take a picture of the houses as they exist today and put them into the file so we have a current record of everything that looks. And we nobody can come and say, well, it always looks like that. We're gonna go, no, here's a picture.
Mm-hmm.
And I will do my best to, over the course and probably through the winter, it'll take me to get all of the houses. But
Has the town done that on GIS yet?
I don't know.
Okay, we could call Michelle W.
Yeah.
It might save you some time if they've already done that, because many towns, you can go on the GIS map.
Yeah, I can go on GIS and look at every property, but having that picture, the
Well,
physical picture.
Many of them have a picture of the front of it from
All
the
right,
street, so you
I'll
might want to
touch
check with
base,
Michelle. Yeah.
And I obviously, I randomly stop by at every project. If I'm out and they hit me on the street and there's a project I'm going, I just stop. And just say, hey, what's going on? I check in on things, make sure things are running the way they say they're going to.
Looks like they're moving, one of the trees died by the Erie Brook.
Yeah.
And that's, we'll get another one in.
Yeah.
Looks like they're doing good progress on the Fort Sheriff, it's looking good.
Yep.
And there were enforcement issues at Blades. The grounds were very unkempt, full of weeds.
Weeds are growing.
The dumpster was a mess, and Steve's on it.
Yeah, I talked to Amy actually at Blackwood. She's been very good about getting stuff taken care of.
Okay, good.
They had a portion of the cut, but they still need to go along the back of the parking lot and on the far end. Still need some cleanup in there, but I make sure I keep on that stuff once it's brought to my attention. Which reminds me, a question for you is how long have the ladders been up on the house next to you?
They came down today.
They came down today.
I thought that was very interesting.
Well,
They've been up for 6
probably
months.
because I was there taking pictures today.
Oh, they've been up for 6 months.
Yeah, when I was there taking pictures and the resident saw me out taking pictures, so you might have said, maybe I better,
Yeah, I got a look when I went by today.
you know.
So,
Other than that, I mean, things I think are going pretty good. I reviewed some of the sections of code that was given me, made some suggestions in regard to some changes that I think would be prudent. As far as like some of the things going, having an architect or somebody send a report to Dorothea makes no sense. There's no reference to plans or anything that's going on in the project. So anything that comes in plan-wise or
Should come to the
reports
CEO.
like should come through me. Because I'm the one who
Hurt
initially.
her feelings.
She doesn't look very hurt over there.
Do you want more to do? Yeah.
you mentioned dumpster enclosures.
Pardon?
Dumpster enclosures like at Blades.
Yeah.
And I've noticed in my work that there are a number of places that have violations regarding their dumpsters.
Correct, I don't have enclosures, I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the things I would, something I thought of and felt like, I don't feel right, this is up to you, but I don't feel right charging somebody that's already paying for a dumpster. I feel right conducting inspections and making them get proper enclosures, but I don't feel right second charging them for them paying for a dumpster.
I have a better idea. What can we charge them for a violation?
Well, you can charge them violations. I mean, there are different ways we can do that as far as there's a violation, but you still have to, by law, you have to give them notice.
Right, I understand that. But I think that would be the deterrent, would be if you had a fine, a $200 fine, for.
Yeah, most fine a minimum $250 a day, right?
So, once you get to the appearance ticket stage, problems will go away.
Yeah. But I don't, I started trying to figure out whose dumpster was associated with who would get charged. We used to charge for dumpster, but, you know, like I said, they're already paying to have it garbage removed. How can we charge them for paying to have the garbage removed? Do you see what I'm saying? So,
Yeah, I know. I think that it was brought up by a previous building inspector that we should have this program of charging for dumpsters because it's done in other
I
municipalities.
think it's in code.
no, I've never, and I've worked in 4 municipalities now. It's the only one I've ever received charge a business to have a dumpster.
I think it's in the organizational minutes, I believe, is where it is.
I'm not sure. Apparently it was a policy or something the village had adopted. I believe the former building inspector implemented it, and then we've been trying to keep up, and unfortunately with the changing of building inspectors, we haven't been able to always collect the fee.
I think Steve has been doing an outstanding job, and I think we should let Steve recommend a policy that he feels works best to manage the resources. And I think we've never had enforcement working as well as it has with you, Steve, and I fully support whatever you recommend.
Okay.
Because what I am going to be charging for the fire inspection. So it's not, you know, we're kind of trading, but the fire inspection is more of a reality of being able to charge them for service. You know, I mean, of an annual service versus the dumpster fee. I feel personally better and easier, you know, getting that from somebody than I would a dumpster fee.
Okay, but have we worked it into our budget already?
We better look at the organizational minutes, and if you could come at the next meeting and just check and see. I think it's in the organizational minutes.
I
which
think it's
means-
also in there for the haulers, and I do agree to charge the haulers. That's different. That's the actual garbage haulers coming in, they're making money off the municipality.
Yeah,
I agree.
yeah.
I agree.
And still charging for temporary dumpsters, because they are separate.
So, but the other part.
It lets me
we
keep
find
control of
that
how
is-
long that dumpster sits there and what kind of material
Exactly.
go in and keeping them messed.
And monitor it to make
Yeah.
sure it's not a mess. So agreed. So come back with a proposal, and then we'll make a resolution and change our policy. And it probably, I think it will be an amendment to the organizational minutes, which we can do. Okay?
Other than that, I think things are going pretty good. I appreciate you guys going through this one too, Rachel. We've worked very hard with them to try and get them to stay in the lines, you know, I mean, of everything. And I think that's a really good thing for this village.
I think it's a good use, and it'll be good to have one less vacant space. So,
Yeah.
yep.
To me, a vacant space is a recipe for a problem.
Yeah, well, it's dominoes, so, and that should be a vibrant use, and
Yeah,
especially.
kind of, and as a side note too, because technically the ballards that are on there are on Rachel's property. Rachel's actually owns farther over into
I
the
believe
vacant
that.
parking lot. But if you actually made them move the ballard out, you're not parking any cars in the front of that. I have contacted Mr. Fitzsimmons, and he is willing to look at also taking those ballards out and putting the same planters that Rachel's is doing.
I don't even care about the bollards there, because that was a property dispute between them. I
Right.
think it was Mr. Reynolds that insisted.
I have to
Oh, I
say,
just think they're
they were
ugly as
driving
sin.
through there, and
I
that's-
fixed those change, I fixed the
Okay.
change probably 10 times already. 'Cause
Yeah,
people
so
don't care.
anyway, to stop the cars from driving across there.
Well, they drove right over a planter. I had G buy a planter and put it in that space you were talking about on the
Dive
parking lot.
bombing flies.
You know what they did? They drove over it and crushed it.
Can you put some
I know.
spikes right there? That'll fix it. They'll just pop the tires and
Well,
then.
I've got those chains wired now, so if you're gonna drive through those, you're gonna hurt your car.
Good.
Good, good, I like that.
Yeah, I found some lot heavier wire and wired them up. So.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Steve.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay, Jeff, besides HPV solar, do you have anything else?
No, but that, I mean, just to fill that in, I do have one more thing, but just to fill that in a little more, we're also gonna invite to the table prospectively technology people who will hopefully help us figure out how to make a lower impact of anything we allow in. And then we may actually do a seminar and invite other municipal preservation boards to learn from what we've found. Litigation, I don't know that anybody's reporting to this board about this piece of litigation, which I'm not involved in, but I was asked to play a role in. The planning board, I'm sorry, the FOPV lawsuit against the planning board site plan approval was down to one issue, and alleged, and I hadn't even realized this was part of the lawsuit, open meetings law violation by the planning board.
Okay.
So Peter Weishar, who's representing the planning board in that litigation, put together talked to me about what had happened and not happened, and he put together an affidavit for me. I don't really think there's anything, I'm certain there's no open meeting law violations, but maybe that affidavit will put that lawsuit to bed.
That would be great.
So that's about all that's going on, other than the normal stuff we all work on.
Okay, then I think you're excused.
All right.
I had a quick question.
Yep.
I had a call, and I didn't think there would be any issue with it. I had a call in regards to, there's a small storefront next to Simply Crepes. They called, the gentleman or the entity that wants to go in there wants to sell CBD oil. Hemp oil products. There's nothing in our code to disallow it. The only thing I told them, and they said, well, we do have some vaping thing that you cannot, there's no vaping allowed in that district.
Right, and then it would be in the office district.
Correct, but it is just purely a retail operation selling oils, creams, things like that. I didn't know if there was any real objection.
I think, Jeff, I would say it's probably a permitted use. Yeah, it's a retail use. I don't think there's anything in the code that would prohibit it.
That's the way I deemed it, but I want to make sure I mention it in case there was some issue.
Good, okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Steve.
Treasurer's report, Mary, you're up.
That's the attorney report that always clears the room. Thanks, Jeff. Everybody have a great night.
You too.
There's that fly by.
Yeah, that's annoying.
Yeah, it's flying around over here. Do we have a fly swatter?
No,
We need one, yeah.
we've never.
We're gonna need a big one, because it's a big fly.
We got horse
This is what you sent?
Yeah,
Is it the same thing that was
just
in?
in case we need it.
I reviewed the vouchers.
Do you need this?
I got it right here, thanks.
Okay. Yes, review the vouchers. I've circled the ones that were,
Unusual.
ones that, yes, unusual for lack of better description. There are some attorney bills in here.
These are the May and June attorney bills.
May bills were approved earlier, they went
Yeah.
out. This is the June one. The June was approved earlier for Zoglin only.
Right, okay.
Not Osborne and not Weishire.
Yeah.
So I have no,
I have no approval on Y Shark yet, so they haven't gotten back to me.
So we'll
yet.
hold that one.
I do have approval on Osborne
okay.
for July.
So we are withdrawing, or are you approving it pending your approval? How
I'll
do you
send
want to do this?
Yeah, I'll send you an email formally.
So conditional approval.
Conditional approval.
So
moved. Do I have a second?
I have one more to add to this one spot that I happened to,
I think,
put them together.
okay, did I miss it when I?
No, it's not on any of your paperwork. I
Okay.
happened to notice it at the very end.
Okay,
And that was for a candidate with National Bank for a credit card. It was a bill of $653.44, which included backup tools and meetings and stuff. I neglected it out of the total, so the total will now raise to $93,755.54.
okay.
Okay?
Mary, voucher 94, Isaac Eden, do you have a write-up for that one?
We do.
$3,800.
We do.
You do?
That was related to our insurance claim with the basement with the cracked pipe. There's a,
Okay, yeah.
I did a write-up for AP Plumbing. for the repair. Isaac actually was already reimbursed by the insurance
Yeah.
company for that repair as well. It was all done under emergency given the situation.
Okay, good.
I have a
Almost.
question on 92. Can we, because he went to 94, can I go back to 92?
No,
You missed that.
missed the vote, that's it.
I can speak to
Yes.
that.
So
Yes, go ahead.
my question is on integrated systems, the 1469 for the Sonic wall is the firewall. Is that a hardware, that's a hardware item, that's a one-time cost?
That's the, yes, it's a
That's
one-time cost. We
for the
pay
firewall.
for the annual maintenance every year on those, but that's a one-time
Okay,
cost.
so that 1469 is the maintenance or is the hardware?
That's the hardware.
Okay, Frank, do we categorize these hardware versus services in different, so that we can depreciate the hardware over amount of time?
No, we haven't done that.
Okay,
Yeah.
is that something we should do?
We ought to do it.
Auditor.
Jen?
I will have to talk to Jen how she's
Yeah.
doing it, because I know she's been working on the depreciation schedule, so I'll have to ask.
The accountant does something like that. I've seen them do something like
Yeah,
that.
Yeah.
I know
you're
that
right.
she does.
Yeah.
I
So,
don't do that, she does.
so I know we've just bought new computers, new
And I would
hardware.
assume she
Right.
touches
She
it
does
all.
Wi-Fi.
Yeah, she
Okay.
does that annually when she does the update document.
It just had the same account number as the services, so I wanted to see that it was
No, that's
treated
okay.
differently. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, what we did is we transferred the Sonic wall from the Village Hall, sent that to DPW
Right.
because we had to have it here, and we got the upgraded Sonic wall for here.
Okay. I do not have approval on 102 yet. I haven't heard back from
Soon
the
as
planning and zoning
What
board.
I'll do is I'll run the check and hold it until
Okay.
you give me that written
Sure.
approval, that I know it's good to go. Okay? That's gonna be the conditional. Any other questions on? New York State Industries for Disabled, that's the rest of our archival grant that we have way upstairs. There's a
Mhm.
bunch of invoices there. 33,000 total. Anything else in here? GIS we're paying for this time in 114.
Okay, we have a
That's a
motion on the
one-two.
floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. I'll run the checks in the morning and then we'll have.
I'll be in to sign.
All right.
And to be clear, the Zoglin ones on 129 are for July or before. I'm sorry, June or before.
They were June only.
Yep.
June
Those
only.
are good.
The May ones went through on the June 25th
Okay.
approvals.
Thank you.
All right, the next few pages, this is all part of our year-end closing. And right now, the accountant has everything, and she's working at trying to get everything closed out and stuff so that we can have a timely report to be filed, the AUD to be filed by August 1st, and it looks like we're on target for that. So I'm just giving you a little bird's eye view of where we stand. So this first page here, monthly report of treasurer, that's all our cash balances in the accounts. And the negatives are okay temporarily, because we're still seeking money to be funded.
Are you
So-
concerned by any of the line items in the cash
No,
positions?
no, not at all. I'm good with all of it. I did have you approve,
Someone's covering us the microphone.
Feedback from somebody.
Oh, it's probably paper on there or something.
It's gotta be
it's
by,
here. Anyway, a few-
Yeah, oh, it could be over there.
maybe.
See if
No,
that's
it's just
there.
weird.
All right.
A couple weeks ago, I had, yes, it is, had everybody approve a bunch of line transfers. So this is, not the revenues, but the expenses have the line items already cleaned up, and this is what it will look like on the AUD when it's actually reported. The law category, I would just like the board to know that they spent $300,000 on attorneys this past year. 162 of that was on litigation.
Mhm.
So that's, yeah, under
That's a
expenditures,
biggie.
that's a
Mhm.
biggie. But that's a big one, and as a result of all of these operations between, revenues, expenses, and the general fund, we are at a deficit for the year of nearly $62,000,
Mhm.
which is really general fund detail of expenditures,
Okay,
the deficit of $61,986.87.
okay.
Okay, so holding that thought in mind, just proceed through. Under the trial balance restricted assets, under account 232R, our repair reserve of $161,580. That is the only one reserve that we have on the general fund, and is the only guaranteed monies we have when we go belly up with anything. Fund balance, as we have it, next page over, under fund balance, A909 is listed at 88,084.77. That's what we have, it's a tentative figure.
That's before all the adjustments.
That's with the adjustments, but the problem is, which we have other funds, and those funds are all funded by the general fund balance. So taking that into consideration, there was pedestrian safety, which is negative balance of $9,034. The rear entry of $785.45, and the big one that we never made the transfer for was the bathroom rental for $28,602.23. Once you take those figures off of that fund balance of $88,000, which is already scary,
I know what.
we're at $49,663 to use or lose throughout the year. It's a very dangerous position for the village to be in. It's gonna, as a result of this, I'm asking the board, I'm sorry, for a special meeting to discuss the current budget and how we, going forward, having to pay back the fund balance that we do have going. So it will also mean relook at the expenses that we have for this year. Next year, part of the plan will have to include a tax increase to help fund back the fund balance, because we should be at a minimum of at least $175,000 at the very, very bottom line to follow our. We should have technically at least 2 months worth of monies to support any kind of expenses that we have, and we're nowhere near that in here. I mean, this one abstract from today is 90,000+, so it's really not good, but.
So I would suggest we schedule this in the near future.
Yeah, near future.
When will you be ready, Mary?
I think I would, couple of things I would like to, probably the end of August would be best. I'm thinking of, waiting till we get the AUD. So we'll see what that looks
So
like.
you're thinking of like the week of the 19th?
Maybe that would be a good thing. And if I could get the current budget up to date, at least June and July.
We are moving our meeting to the 20th.
That might help, yeah.
Mary, you're off the 19th, 20th, and 21st.
Okay, you're away.
Well, no, 19th, 20th, and 20th of August. But I don't think I had any real plans. No, that's the week that I thought my family was gonna be in, they're not gonna be, so I can use it.
Okay.
Yeah, I can use it.
So we're meeting the 20th because we switched the meeting to the 20th to accommodate Dan. So do you want to try another night that week?
We could do, yes, that would be fine. Whatever works for the entire board, I'll try to.
Well, Renee, you said you're away though, right?
No, not that week.
So,
That was.
well, Dan is away. You said you're away Thursday, Dan, or when are you away?
Tuesday the 13th.
Okay, but you could, okay, so how about Thursday the 22nd?
I can't do that.
You can't do that.
And we
I would
can't
like to do
piggyback
that.
it with our other, could we do it earlier, with our, since we already have a meeting on the 20th, or would that just be too much to handle, given that we're only meeting?
How much time do you think you'll need, Mary?
I probably should have at least an hour for the board to look.
Well,
at
then I would say we could meet at 5 and we would have a couple hours before our regular meeting started.
On what day of the week?
Tuesday?
Tuesday the
Tuesday,
20.
at 8:20
Yeah,
at
that
5.
works for me.
Would that work?
That'll work for me.
5:30 is better, but 5's a little tough.
That gives you an hour and a half. Is that enough time?
Hopefully, I mean, what I'm hoping to accomplish at that point is, go over the AED quickly, find out, and take a look where we're standing, if I can get everything up to date. And then the board is gonna have to make some decisions about how are we gonna handle the balance of this year going forward, so that we don't go into a deficit. Because if we have a negative fund balance next year, the state will be here. That is a guarantee.
Okay, so you'll bring recommendation, that kind of thing?
Right, as much as I can, but
Will you
we
have
also-
time to meet with the accountant that you work with to get a recommendation? Will that give you enough time to get something
Well,
together?
what she sent to me here. Let's see here. This is her memo to me. Fund balance in general fund ends with 88,000, but the bathroom room needs to be funded. Reducing the fund balance to 59 actually brings it down to the 49 because of the other two funds that still need to be funded. The only way to repay fund balance is to levy more money than you spend. Estimated revenue side of the budget needs to be higher than appropriations. That will be effective for the next budget going out. It's too late for this year. So for this year, the board has to remember that they have overspent this year's budget. If it happens again in 1920, there is a severe chance of having a negative general fund balance. They have surely had the state's attention. You can build surplus into the budget as well by conservatively budgeting on the appropriation side, so there are actually unspent funds, which will increase fund, and it's freezing up here, chattering.
That's okay.
Fund balance. But anyway, basically what she's saying is review our line items in our current budget, see what we can push off, change, whatever. But that's gotta involve everybody, because everybody's got some interest in the budget as far as, your particular area. So that would need to be looked at and see what we could change.
I have some ideas that I'll share with you, but let's get together maybe later. Are you here the rest of the week?
Yeah, I'm here on
All right, then maybe tomorrow when I come in and talk, sign the checks, we can sit down
Yeah,
and talk.
okay, that's fine. And, so that's really the big problem is the general fund, but we knew that going in. I've already told you about the other ones that we need to fund, that's all part of it. Capital fund, we're ending up with just under 66,000 of money, and most of that is all for road work. So the 75, I think I had guesstimated for you before, is now 10,000 less. So for your South Street project that you were thinking is a hit.
Well, that's what I want to talk about, but
Okay.
we have $114,000 for South Street.
I'm not sure where you're getting the number.
I remember it was a configuration of
From
the
the-
chips and
From the bond, we've got 75,000. Chips, we've got 25. New York paved New York, 4,900 and 7,697. The extreme weather recovery. So we've got 112,000.
And it just dropped down by 10,000 for you.
Where did it go?
It's with the transfers between the funds and stuff, so that's part of the reason for it.
And that's why I sent everybody last night a report on the South Street project.
I'm sorry, I didn't see it.
And I just want to take a couple minutes if you have some time. to
Yep,
talk
we do,
about it.
we do.
All right, so that's fine. I'm just saying,
Are you done, Rick?
yeah, pretty much done. I'm just gonna let you know that the fund balance and the sewer fund is ridiculous, which is another area that has to be addressed. Because that fund balance is at like $685,000. And that was one of the, concerns that the controller had, that it's way too high. So we need to revisit the Galley plan again and reconfigure what we want in reserves and stuff.
No, I've got Gailey's plan.
Right.
And his his plan, the amount of money that he's got reserved doesn't come near to what we would need if we had a sewer break.
That is
Or
correct.
if we had a problem, so.
That is correct.
And I think in our audit report, we actually said that
Right,
we needed that money.
Right.
so.
We do need it, but we need to reallocate it. We can't have it sit as it's addressed right now. It's just sitting in an unreserved account.
So we have to
So we need to,
recategorize.
we need to recategorize it and put it into a reserve.
Do we have
for-
guidelines from what we need to?
We do have some idea about
So
what
we
to
could
do, but
write
we
a-
still need to go back and
Okay.
do all the mechanics behind it. But it is, yeah, it's $685,000 right now.
Right, because we're actually achieving what our goal was, which I think is what you were saying, Frank,
Right.
which is to build up the sewer reserve so we have enough on hand. If we had an emergency, we would have enough money to cover it, and we're making good progress there. So that is actually a positive. The administrative, I mean, that's a fairly minor issue, is to write a proper reserve with a proper category
Right.
that meets their
So
guidelines.
that has to be done, but we can't let it go because that's one of the conditions that we have.
Can we
with the
talk
county.
about that tomorrow and maybe we can make that happen?
Okay, we'll do that.
And I mean, maybe I can help do a write-up for you if you tell me what you need.
Okay, I'll have to think about it.
You need a shawl in
Freezing.
here. It is
What
cold.
do you have it set at in here?
All right.
The temperature
This
just
is
dropped.
Linda's temperature. All right, that's it for me.
Let me take a couple minutes just to talk about South Street.
Mm-hmm, okay.
I've been fully aware that we've had some fiscal problems since the fall of last year. And we've been meeting with these engineering firms about how we could pave South
Thank you,
Street.
Dan.
But we really haven't had any luck because we haven't had any money. In May, I sent everybody a report on South Street
Mhm.
and what it took, what it was we were gonna do, mill and pave, sidewalk, curb reconstruction, sanitary storm sewer work, catch basin reconstruction, speed control, and all those related costs with that project. And at that point, I figured we had $112,000.
Right, I didn't know about the change until Mary.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this was just after she did all her stuff.
Yeah, but there's a problem with that, because if we don't do the ADA work, then we can't use the CHIPS money for funding. So that takes $25,000 away from the 112.
No, why not? I mean, wait a minute, back up a little bit. Why can't we use it if it's not ADA?
That's their new right.
It's a new thing in there? I
Yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
see that.
So that's the problem that we've been struggling with for all these months, and I didn't want the board to go any further without really knowing where we are. Somebody could come up and ask you, and, it's really not good to say, I don't know.
That is correct.
And what I did yesterday was I updated the report that I sent around in May. And basically, I said we've got three options. One is to take the paving project on ourselves, but I'm afraid we won't have enough money for that. Given where we are now, we just don't have the money for it. One. Two, South Street is a big project. We have a limited crew. I wouldn't want our crew to take on that size of a project. There are a lot of pitfalls, and so.
In addition to the impact it would have on the seasonal labor of other stuff that we are required
Yes.
to get done, correct? Mhm.
Exactly. The other option would be to hire an engineering firm, and we've interviewed some, and that brings the cost up between $225,000 and $250,000. What that would mean is that we would have them manage the project, and they would hire the contractors, and our crew wouldn't do that, so that if anything goes wrong, it's their fault. But we don't have the $250,000. The only other thing that we did, we interviewed, and you were in on this, Bob.
Mhm.
We interviewed the village clerk for Fairport and their DPW superintendent, because they did the same thing for West Church Street, going into Fairport, going into the market. And they got full government funding. That's the good news. The bad news is, you have to come up with the money first. And
It's
we
like
don't
so
have
back
the
to
money.
square one again and wait.
Yeah.
Well, what if we did a plea to do what they did? Because East Rochester got a huge amount of money for road work. And then a huge sidewalk project from their representatives in Albany. And we have a case on this road because the bulk of the traffic on South Street, which I think it's 7,000 cars a day, I think
Yes.
that's about right, is largely non-village residents. It's an arterial street.
Right.
So there is a case for assistance, and then we use a loan for a cash turnaround.
Yeah.
That would be the way to do it.
That project wound up costing them $860,000.
Wow.
It's
Yeah.
little bucks.
And the whole problem was, in order to get the government money, they had to conform to their regulations. So all the ADA work,
Everything has to be.
it all had to be engineered.
Right.
Every crosswalk had to be engineered. And it just drove the cost up crazy.
The difference, that street in Fairport gets about 20,000 cars a day compared to 7,000 cars a day on
Yeah.
South Street. So a much less busy street.
So the reason for this is I wanted you to know that it's not like we're not thinking about it. We've been talking to people, we've been doing interviews and all that, but we all know where we stand, and there's really nowhere we can go at this point. But you should know where we are. And so that was the purpose of my bringing this up tonight.
Okay.
Thank you, Frank.
Will you have an extra copy of that report that I can borrow from?
Mary, I'll give you this one because I've got it on my computer.
Okay, great, thank you.
It's frustrating when we think about road maintenance in particular because we're living with the legacy of growth that didn't benefit the village. And it's really frustrating. So we have all this growth outside the town, this urban sprawl, or whatever you want to call it, suburban sprawl in this case. And we're living with the legacy of it, and we have to come up with the money for all this traffic that's not village traffic, and like it's frustrating. It seems like there should be some sort of
And
assistance.
we're actually financially in much better shape than many. When I go to Nikon, I hear the horror stories of 40%, 50%, 70% tax increases because the state has rescinded funding that used to assist with things like this and taken it away, and at the same time everybody's under the tax cap. So it's a very, very financially challenging time for everybody right now, no question about it. And it's frustrating because we have these great ideas that, we want the active transportation plan, and this, the financial realities of it are hamstringing us.
I got one more thing which we need to go into executive session for.
Okay,
Adios, thank you.
is it a brief thing, or is it should we do it before or after minutes?
We could do it after minutes, and I've got it organized enough that I can make it brief. I can go through it.
Okay, I think the minutes will be quick. May 22nd. Any corrections?
I just have a question about, you said that, it said here that Mayor Corby informed the public that Deputy Mayor would be running because he was ill, but I don't think that was the right date, and anyway.
How did that happen?
That's probably left over from another 7 minutes, because I think Mayor Corby was
Yeah,
there.
that should be there.
Yeah, I was there.
That was, wow, I didn't even see that.
Good catch.
Linda didn't even catch that.
This is the one from Sutherland.
Yeah.
Do we want to note that that was in a different location?
Yeah, I was wondering that too. Does it
I can
matter,
add that.
or-
Yeah.
And on, if you look on the front page,
Mhm.
if you go down to the third paragraph, Mr. Malcolm is missing the B.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
And then if you go down to the bottom of the page, it looks like there's a space problem. Either there should be a break or a new paragraph there, which I think is what you wanted to do.
Okay, I'll fix it. It,
No, it just didn't wrap right.
yeah,
There's a carriage returned by accident
yeah, it's the
from
way
the part.
between the editing and this and that.
No worries, no worries. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of May 22nd, 2019 as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
May 18th, 2019.
28.
Oh, thank you. Yep, May 28th. Thank you, Dan.
I have an edit on the discussion on resolution on racism.
What page are you on, Dan?
It's the third page of the notes.
Yeah.
In the paragraph that begins, Trustee Keating addressed the promise of education, blah, blah, blah. About 3/4 of the way down, hold on. I'm trying to find the edit. Racism is not bullying. Racism is not just, is not simple bullying, was the comment. On the next page.
So it should be racism is not simply
Simple.
bullying or?
Simple bullying.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
It simply might be clearer, but it's the same basic idea.
Okay.
Where, I have to ask for a clarification of that, because I can't find it yet.
Oh, it's here, I can show you, Lily. It's-
Page 3.
It's right here.
Because
Okay.
racism is bullying, it's just
It's,
more than bullying.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
On page 4, this is an easy one. Jesse Keating is spelled Jessie.
Ah,
And you've got that a few times throughout.
I will fix that.
Yeah. And there was a rather incendiary comment made in the section on board appointments. And
Where are you, Dan?
page 8. It's not in the notes here, and the comment was something along the lines of, "Why would I consult you on anything?" made by Mayor Corby.
I'm not putting that in minutes, okay, I'm gonna say that straight out. That
Thank you.
doesn't belong. I tried, this was difficult minutes as it is, as we go back and forth, and I'm sorry, I'm sounding a little angry, because minutes aren't supposed to be that. They're simply, they can be just motions. They
Yeah.
don't need to be this detailed. And I did these more detailed given the issue. Now, what I try not to do is put the incendiary things in there, because that, I don't want these used as a, look what he said or she said. I try desperately not to make that way. They're just supposed to be a simple recording of the meeting. If I start putting all that in, I'm putting everything in there, and I might as well be just glued to a typewriter all night, every day, doing these minutes.
Okay.
We don't want to go to that. I
Okay.
really don't want to, I don't want our minutes to be,
Sure.
show that the board is fighting. I really
Yeah,
don't
nor
want
is
to
it
do that.
productive, because sometimes emotion gets in the conversation, but that isn't really productive. I mean, none of us mean that.
I try to,
Sometimes we get carried away, but it's not,
no,
it's
and the
not
other
the
thing I
productive
want
way
to
to
mention
handle
is
the
that
meeting.
there have been, when we've done minutes before, and I didn't speak up at the time, and I should have, there have been times when actual sentences have been changed, saying, I don't want it to say that, I want it to say this, I didn't like the way that sounded. We cannot do that, we cannot change the record. So we are merely, what we're doing here is agreeing that this is the spirit of what took place, we're not taking it apart word by word. I think that, both Joanne and Linda and Dorothea have done an excellent job, far beyond what most municipalities receive in the way of minutes, far beyond.
And I want to compliment Dorothea, because she did put a lot of time in this. I think it merits it. Obviously, it was a sensitive subject that we had a responsibility to handle sensitively, which I think we did. But I thank you for all the effort you put into these.
Okay, there's an error on the bottom of page 8.
Where?
It's in the vote. So the vote was Corby, no, Lanfear, no, Galusha, no, Keating, yes, Stetzer, yes, motion not carried. So the first 3 are no's there.
Oh.
That was all I had on that, on the May 28th minutes.
Thank you.
Make a motion to approve with the changes. Does anybody else have anything?
Okay. Motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on to June 1st, 2019.
There's some names spelled wrong in here. Would you like the proper spellings?
Yeah, if you can give the problem, these 2
Yeah.
meetings, we ran into a lot of people not giving me information, I'm guessing, and I can't find them, web searches go only so far.
Is
Sure.
Marty really a Martin? Is he Martin, Martina? Or is he
Yeah.
Martin? He is? Okay. Okay, that's the one I noticed.
Page 4, first full paragraph, Catherine Koshikar. It's Catherine with a C, and Koshikar is spelled Kosh. Here, I can look it up really quickly. Kathy, Koshykar.
Okay.
Is she the resident who's running for town board?
Yeah, she was here
Okay.
tonight.
Okay.
The other one that's spelled wrong is Mark Dykman on page 2, but I'm not sure I know how to spell Dykman. Let me look him up. It's D-I, page 2. Mark,
It's not Deckman?
D-I-E-K-M-A-N-N. Oh, and top of page 5, you said Dakin, 19 East Jefferson Road.
Yeah.
That name is Carmen, C-A-R-M-E-N, Ando, A-N-D-O-H.
So it's not Bacon?
Nope. The other thing I want to highlight on this page is Trustee Keating indicated that he would agree to remove the training portion of the resolution if the board agrees to resolve the training portion by the time the code updates are completed in October. Just wanted to remind us that we wanted to do that. I don't have any other changes to June 1. Does anybody else?
Nope. Make a motion to approve the minutes of June 1st. Do I have a second?
With the changes to names.
With the changes as amended. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bob, you want to hand this out?
Sure.
Please?
So now we're in executive session?
Yes, in executive
We
session.
may need to enter. I'll make a motion to enter executive session to discuss the performance of a specific employee.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.